Hello, welcome to Waiting for Game, podcast presented by Melee Stats. I'm your host, Give Me That Weed. I come on here every app, and sometimes I feel the need to list my credentials. Sometimes I don't. Sometimes I just roll into it. But this one, I feel like it's an important time to list anything because we are going to be talking about something very specific. So I introduce myself as Give Me That Weed Tournament Seeder. And importantly for this, someone who has worked on the MPGR SSBM rank in some capacity since 2016. And yet hey, go ahead and attack me. Say that an algorithm would do this better than me. We will find out because we are going to be talking all about our lists today. Before we get to that, though, let me introduce my good friend, someone who, if there's any justice in the world, will not be running out of the room because of a carbon monoxide poisoning incident. Edwin, first off, can we hear a little bit about this? You were very good on the episode last week for the 2 minutes that you were on, but do you want to talk about what happened? The reason why you had a blank screen for about 98% of the episode. Do you want to talk about this at all?
Yeah, so it was definitely terrifying. In the middle of the episode, I can't even say the middle because
No, it was like first 10 minutes.
It was like the first, it happened near the intro. I heard a terrifying fire alarm going off in the basement of a house that I just moved into with my spouse. The fire alarm was saying, I don't even remember exactly what it was saying, but I knew it was bad. And it seemed like it seemed like a potential, faulty smoke detector, but I knew it was a carbon monoxide detector as well. So I freaked out. I panicked because this was playing in every room in the house because all the alarms are connected to each other. So it wasn't just me that I thought was in danger. It was my spouse and my dog upstairs, potentially in danger of carbon monoxide poisoning. So turned off my laptop. I called the fire department, brought my spouse and my dog outside. I waited for the fire department to show up. They eventually show up in 5 minutes. Pretty good. They search the house. They go around in every room. They got like a little smoke. They have another smoke detector, but they also have like a carbon monoxide like thing. I don't know what it's called, right? Basically, they go into every room. Not a single bit of carbon monoxide and not a single bit of smoke. After about a pretty long time, they check everything. They're pretty thorough. They tell me you're not going to die. You can go back in, and you and your family are safe. It's probably just some dust in the smoke detector.
So that was the first time.
Yeah, that was the first time. The second time, I was pretty sure this time that I wasn't going to die, but it was going off again. And this time it was saying something along the lines of smoke detected, evacuate immediately. Smoke detected, evacuate immediately. And, at that point, I just, had it. I once again left the episode, went to check on the smoke alarm, clean it up, to, reset it, or to change some of the settings to make sure that it would not be so finicky while maintaining that it would work. And at that point, the show had already finished. So that's the saga of why I was not on 90. What did you say? 98? I think that's pretty accurate. 98% of the show last week. It was pretty terrifying the first time, but I think I've solved it. I think the room I'm in should be good. I'm not in danger of dying. And even more importantly than that, I'm really excited to talk about what's been a great SmashCon. And I'm not just excited to talk about it with Wheat, but I'm really happy to be talking about it with my good friend Kyle Krudo. Some of you know him. I personally know him for being my Chic Fox whisperer, one of my two whisperers on this matchup, who helps me win money betting in that matchup. But Krudo, it's really awesome to see you. It's great to have someone who's not just like representative of the top level in competition, but someone who kind of knows the more like nerdy details of tournament results, is interested in following the scene, sort of being involved in the back end for a few years or so as a panelist and everything like that. How are you doing tonight?
I'm great. Yeah, I started as a panelist in like 2017, so I've been doing it like on and off for a long time. I like didn't finish my ballot once, but that's okay. And then I've
Not a
definitely
big
had
fuss.
multiple people just copy my ballot. So
Yeah, maybe. Hey, maybe we'll get into that because ballot copying, it's one of the juicier things that people don't talk about.
yeah.
But maybe we don't talk about it because then people just touchdown Juan will advocate for algorithm more. But yeah, Krudo, it's very happy to have you on. Any carbon monoxide poisoning this week for you, or is it just Edwin?
I think I should be good.
Okay.
Fingers crossed. I don't know if I have anything in here. I built this room I'm in, and I don't think I put that a carbon monoxide detector in here.
Okay. So if there is carbon monoxide, we won't know. Well,
Yeah.
at least the
I think we will know, but it may not be in the it may not be in the way that it may be in a way that gets us banned from Twitch,
Yeah.
but not in
wow,
the exciting way, in the just like
Krudo's
tragic and
passed
very.
out. But yes, this is going to be a very good episode. I feel like it's going to be chock full of stuff because obviously a ton of SmashCon, obviously a ton to talk about top 100. So we're going to get into this as quick as we can. But first, Krudo, do you know your connection to the Melee Stats lore?
With MV Sinister?
Yes.
Or yeah, I was told about that. I think everyone told me about it.
So I can inform the audience on this. So it's God, maybe 2018. Edwin, does that sound right? 2017 or 2018?
Yeah, 2018, 2017 or so, one of those 2 years.
Somewhere around there, years ago, an Ambi, wonderful Ambi, New Jersey at the time, as a job he hates. Familiar, but he has a job he hates. And we're like, dude, fuck it, leave the job, and what you're gonna do is you are going to just grind Melee, and we picked a mid-level, so very like loaded word. But we picked a not top 100 player as a rival. So we're like, here, like what you're going to do is you are going to here's your rival, and you are going to prepare for them in the following way. You're going to go to every local that you can find while driving down the coast of America. You're going to drive from New Jersey, and every time you're going to go to like a Philly local, you're going to go to a MDVA local, you're going to drive down, you're going to go to everything, and that's your preparation for your final boss, Kyle Krudo, who, like, what could you have even been? Like 8th CFL, maybe something like that.
Yeah, maybe like man, I don't even remember 2018 that well. At like best, I was like 10th or 9th or something.
So it was like reasonable maybe at the time, and the idea was that if he did not best you, I don't even know if he got one chance or was a multiple thing, but yeah, he needed to defeat his demon Krudo, and if he didn't, he was going to drive into the ocean. And
Yeah,
now,
mhm.
fast forward 4 or 5 years, this is hey, MB top 64 at Genesis, but Krudo top 16 at Genesis. It's a very different thing. We're not talking to not to spoil the list that we're going to talk about, but we're talking about a top 20 player. So, you know, our good friend Ambi, it might be best if he just leaves this one be. He stays at his job and doesn't do the whole crusade.
You know, it was really tragic that you had to become like much better at the game like you are now, because like we had a whole getting the final destination was of course a showdown with you, but you know the journey there we had really planned out, right? So at one point I had a list of locals. I even thought like if you defeat different mini bosses at each local that you would gain them as a party member. So we had this whole idea of Bones joining the party. So Bones would
Oh
be
yeah, it's like an RPG.
yeah, like an RPG, right? You go to Xanadu or something. You play, or I guess it would have been the whatever was the like a Swarthmore local or something back then. You beat Bones there, like you got to take him with you. You go to MDVA, like you train against like Luca Demis or something. You bring him with you. You go to North Carolina. You grab one of their players,
Yeah.
like Tylenol or something, and it's all for like the clear purpose of defeating Kyle Krudo in Florida.
Yeah, I feel
And here
like
we are.
the southern states have a lot of people that could have been like mini bosses back then. So I feel like everybody was pretty close in skill. It was actually a really cool scene. But,
I think we just picked the wrong mini boss.
uh,
I think like Harriet. Harriet would be someone who's like, yeah, I think Ambi could beat Harriet right now. But unfortunately, we picked someone who just got fifth at the second largest tournament of the year. You want to talk about that, Crudo?
Well, one really quick thing I will
Okay.
say with Harriet in particular, I think even if if the driving to Atlantic Ocean thing were not part of the challenge, I do want to, as like the punishment if you lose, I will say that I think Harriet's a very funny opponent. Not because he's very good at the game, but I do think Harriet plays in a way that makes his opponent want to drive into the Atlantic Ocean after they lose
Yeah,
to him. So I could definitely, I think he would almost be like a timeless final boss of this challenge of sorts.
it's like kind of weird though, 'cause he's definitely prone to just like losing on purpose or playing with alternative win conditions or
Mhm.
whatever he deems at the time. And if it's like a final boss, and then the final boss just like runs off stage 4 times, trying to hit you with drill on a specific approach, then SD after to see if you notice. So
I mean, it'd be good for Ambi and
uh,
his ability to survive.
yeah, he
But
would definitely live.
yeah, now we've got a more punishing final boss. But Edwin, are you good? Can we
Yeah, that's what
transition
I
to
just wanted.
SmashCon? Okay.
I just love I
No,
love the Krudo challenge and
nothing
everything
more
about
about Harriet that you need to say.
it. Nothing more.
Okay. Well, man, I don't think it was a great transition, but you did kind of step on. Okay, Crudo, you got fifth at SmashCon. SmashCon 700 entrants. Let's talk really quickly about your run, and then we obviously have a couple crazy things that happened here. But do you want to kind of clue us in and like what you thought going into this and everything?
Yeah, I so I thought I was playing none, and then like Juan or something the whole time
Yes,
'cause the fucking seating. So I
bracket
practiced for
was
that.
incredibly fucked.
Yeah, the seating was changing constantly last minute. They decided to add Wally, who is like probably like a 20th seed or around there as the 64th or 65th seed. Just like completely griefing everything. So it was kind of weird going into it. I didn't really know who I was gonna play. I like thought they might stick me against Spark, and I really thought I was gonna have to play against Shootout last second. So I thought about that, but I did end up playing against Spark. I was supposed to play Maelstrom at some point, but he DQ'd. He seemed okay. I played Rishi, who at the time I thought was like, wow, this is a pretty good pull in this round. Like, doesn't really play the game anymore. I play Sheik, and then he ends up getting top 8, so that was
Yeah,
cool. Crazy, honestly. I did not expect that at all. He always seemed kind of bad against Fox. And I played Spark, who I definitely thought would beat me, but then I 3-0'd him pretty badly. He switched controls recently. He switched to Z jump, and his Z jump controllers keep breaking, so it's pretty unlucky for him. But I don't use Z jump, so my controller can't break. And then I had to play Wally, who just beat Zane, and I thought that would be a lot harder too, but then I also just destroyed him. I don't really know what to say about that. And then going into top 8, I played Wad. Man, there's a lot I could say about that. That was a weird. I'm not used to that. It was just like a lot of people watching. They were all cheering for Wad. It kind of threw me off. I thought I'd do well, but honestly, he kind of sauced me. And dang, I don't know. I have a lot of regrets about that set, but that is just the way it works out. I think it was a pretty good experience. And then I played Zane, who destroyed me. I don't know. I thought I'd have a good chance against Zane too, and then he kind of dogged on me. Zane was weird though. Playing Zane in tournament, he just like really wants to win. You can like feel it sitting next to him, and that really threw me off. But it was an okay. I don't feel like I did exceptionally well. I just beat people I thought I would most likely beat, except for Spark. And I kind of just lost to people better than me, and just ended up in winners top 8 because of upsets. But that
that's
is
all
how
you
that
need.
goes.
You gotta play the person who gets placed in front of you.
Yeah, that's what I did. So it worked out. I really wanted to play none, and I was really sad to see they changed it to Spark like the day before, but it did not go that bad. So
Yeah,
fucked up, honestly.
well, I
Like,
mean, hey, we had an entire podcast based on a bracket that like immediately changed. We did it Wednesday night, and we were like, okay, so this tournament technically starts tomorrow. Bracket starts Friday. It's Wednesday night. This is probably not going to change, even though it's been constantly changing. We did an entire episode, and then
yeah.
yeah, it changes again. Um, I don't know what to say about that. There is man, I don't. Yeah, I've not run a tournament that has 700 people, so what can I say? But there were a lot of interesting last minute changes that yeah, I don't know. I think it did end up having like a pretty insane tournament that came out of it.
Yeah.
Um, and if you watch our episode last week, Swedish and I are just like talking. We're just like, yeah, maybe the top level is not the most interesting, but everything below that is insane. And like, there's so many players who can make runs. And like, I didn't call Wally over Zane or anything, but I definitely do think that the idea of this tournament that like had just filled with upsets, I think that came true. You obviously you said you're the recipient of a few, and I think that's kind of like burying the lead. So we've got what like on your side of the bracket had did it have Crike over Moki as well? Was that and then it had
No.
Rishi over Crike?
Uh, no, it was
No.
Rishi. If I lost or loser of me and Rishi ended up playing Crike at the end.
Oh yeah, yeah,
My side of bracket was literally just Zane getting upset, and then Zuppy got upset by Skurzo, and
true.
then
Yeah.
Skurzo
Well,
got shit on by Wally, and then I played Wally.
That was very funny. You said Zuppy got upset by
Zuppy
Skurzo.
got upset by Skurzo.
Yeah, he was seated higher. Is more
I,
why I said that. I think
but you did
Zuppy's
say
the
the seating was trash.
yeah. The seating is definitely trash. I just had the
So,
bracket pulled up, so I said that.
okay,
I
interesting.
think Zuppy would have done much better versus Wally. That
Yeah,
Yeah,
much.
well,
I think Skurzo was kind of tough for him. Like, because I know Skurzo beat him at function. I thought out of
Yeah.
the possible opponents he could have gotten, that was a little hard. I'm not
Yeah.
going to go as far as to say. Well, I mean, I think Wally being season 64th is like very or whatever is
well,
very
should
funny.
we talk about it? Like, you know,
Yeah, let's jump into it.
I I forget if I mentioned this. I gave them seating. I like presented seating to SmashCon, and there's a couple different. Maybe I did talk about this. I forgot, but there's like a couple different levels that when people ask for seating, that like levels of interaction and just like hands-on-ness, I guess, that people have. So sometimes people will go like, okay, like, can we get you to see this? And they'll like come up with you with a number right away, and then they will just give you access, and you can do anything. You can like fucking change the name of the tournament if you want to. It's honestly sometimes I've been given too much power in situations, and the fact that like nothing has been titled to like I don't even know. I can't even. I don't want to besmirch any tournament with making fun of their name, but like the fact that everything has stayed the same is just a testament to my willpower. And then you have people who are like, okay, like yeah, like you know, we're gonna have this TO, they're gonna look on it, and then sometimes you have just like, we're gonna do it ourselves. Send me like 16 players who are good. And this is kind of in the middle. This was something where I like sent some ideas and I sent like seeding, and it got put in immediately, and then it was time to fix conflicts, and so to me, to what it looked like to me was that someone just went into the start GG like conflict generator, conflict resolver, and just like hit the immediate suggested conflicts. Like because Smash GG will go, hey, B-Bats is like in the same doubles pool as he is in singles pool, so why don't you just move him down 100 seeds? Like then he'll be in different waves. And usually there's like easier ways. Like there's better ways to do it that are a little harder. But I was told that they're like I was told by the TOs, yeah, it looks like this happened, but that wasn't the case. So I don't know. But yeah, this just kept changing. And Wally specifically, who why we brought this up, Wally has signed up for like everything. It's like him and Skurzo are just like every single time a tournament's up, they're both signed up early reg, like every single time. And then Wally is talking about like his rooming situation. He's like took off work. He's driving down there. He's like got this whole thing. I've been hearing about it the entire time. And he realizes he's not signed up. And it's this like this odyssey of him like trying to go through every single person he can and like keeps getting redirected. And at a certain point, it looks really grim, and everyone is telling him no. They're like, "This is a horrible look for SmashCon if we add you in. Like, we have to take a hard stance. There's going to be no players added." And then I'm like, okay, cool. But like also, we have people in the top 64 who are dropping. Maelstrom, we knew as a DQ. Jado, we knew as a DQ. So like I was like, yeah, I mean the spot's gonna be empty anyway. So like we can probably like reconfigure seating if you want. Uh, and then Wally just gets added as that seed, like as the 63rd or 64th or whatever seed. Like what? It's just like straight up added. It wasn't like okay, we can make this swap here. We make it was just okay. Wally's 64th now. And Wally, who was just like so excited to be in after like 2 days of fighting, was just like, okay, I'm 64th seed. And I think the fact that this led to what was what could be one of the biggest upsets of all time is so funny to me. It's just
It's up
like
there. It's up there.
it's
If
so funny.
if
And the
anyone had
set
told you,
itself,
if anyone had told you from this event that Wally would beat Zayn, you would have laughed at them. Wally, and I just want to bring this up specifically with Wally in particular. Wally, I've been a big believer in. Okay, I think he's back in 2020 and like late 2019 when he was going to a ton of events. When he was, every East Coast regional, you could find Wally there. It could be New Hampshire, New Jersey, it could be New York, wherever he would be there. Always, uh, I always thought Wally was a player to look out for. Never, never in my mind did I even anticipate the seriously think of the possibility that he would be not just the best player in the world, but someone who frankly just like doesn't lose outside of like before winner side of top eight
no,
very, very frequently. It's just, when we look back at like the list of all time upsets, this has to be up there. I mean, like there's Lovage Leffen, there's Albert over H box, there's when the first time when Nunn beat Mute King. This is in that category. Wally over Zayn is like, and I want to mention with Wally also specifically that Wally versus Marth is a very funny like that specific player versus character rivalry is one of the funniest things for anyone that knows Wally and has been following his results. For a
Krudo,
while.
do you know the legend of Wally versus Marth? Do you know his game plan?
I do. He did it to Forrest, and
Yes.
Forrest had to take a break in the middle of the set. It's like, all right, you can't take this. And he just gets on the top plot and he does like float back here down smash over and over, and just top plot camps Forrest.
He loves to top platform camp, and like I've talked to other Peaches about this because I see it and I'm like, I don't actually think that this should work. And I heard a lot of people go like, no, I don't think it should either. And I've like seen him get blown up for it. He has a set win over Kadoran at I believe it was like a nightclub in 2021 or something. But kind of got blown up by Kadoran last time they played, if I remember correctly. I've seen like sets where he will lose a set to Calvar and it just doesn't work, and then he will just like employ it harder the next set, and it'll just like work completely well. It's definitely it's a very like hateful way to play the game, uh, in a way where I don't know. I like. Is it similar to how? Have you played Aklo, Crudo? I've heard
Yeah,
people talk about Aklo in that same way. I don't know if you have any
I feel
thoughts on it.
like it
Just
is like a more ironic take on Aklo's gameplay, except he does it unironically, so it's really weird. It's just like if someone was trying to mimic Aklo and just be an asshole about it.
maybe. I remember talking to Wally at something. Well,
I unplugged my Ethernet cable. I'm back.
okay, as long as it's not carbon monoxide.
Yeah, no. Where did they DC me?
I don't even remember. But here
Yeah.
I was gonna tell a little story about how I was at maybe it was Pound, maybe it was something, whatever it was. It was an event, and Wally was there, and Wally had a Marth in his path, and I was like, you know what you gotta do, and he just went like, and like put his hand up to like show the top platform, like yes, very very clearly understanding that this is annoying, and this is like just like pure spite and being like, yep, that's what I do, and something that I would say wouldn't work against Zane. And I would be wrong for saying this because the set that we saw was completely different. Edwin, you are so much of a Marth main that you literally have a hoodie that says Marth main on it. So I want to hear
That's
your
true.
thoughts It's a shirt.
No, I don't have a shirt that says Marthmain.
Is it? It's a
My
hoodie.
sister, no, let it be known, I didn't get the Marthmain hoodie for myself. My sister got it. My sister got it for me, my older sister, and I explained to her like what a stereotype typical Marth player did, back in the day, and still somewhat now. Like the stereotypical Marth player like has a notepad, watches Mute King, and PP is a bit of a snob. And I told Arya that, and she was like, "Yeah, that's perfect. Like that literally sounds like you. That sounds like someone I've known my whole life. Like I'm glad I got you that sweater." It's pretty funny. But
So,
but yeah, I have some thoughts on the set itself. I do think that like it's important that as really funny as Wally's legacy of top platform camping is versus Marth. I do think that watching the set, like Wally won a lot of straight up like interactions with Zayn. Like I think I kind of have a sneaking suspicion that this is going to be retconned as like a fluke, or people are going to look at the set and think
hey,
more.
there was 3 stitches. Of course, Zane's gonna lose.
Yeah, people are gonna like look at things like that, but they're not gonna like. I feel like a lot of the rest of the set is just gonna go unsaid. Like if there are shortcomings of Zane, like whether it's one thing that I noticed is I think he doesn't really Wally plays so fast, right? But I feel like if Zane knew how to put Peach in a bit like more like openly bad of a spot versus just like trying to outmaneuver her and get hits a lot, I feel like if he had a better sense of where Peach was bad and how to actually like limit her and punish her fully a little better, that he would do well. But like I think that whatever shortcomings he has there, like Wally is able to take advantage of them and actually like win scraps and like win the positioning game against him, and not just by like camping him or taking top platform, right? Because it's like if it was that easy, everyone would do it. But it's like
Yeah.
so I think so I do want to like as very funny as it is to like mention this incredible lore of Wally versus Marth. I want to give him a lot of credit. Like he even watching the first game, I think like 2.5 minutes into it, Wally's up like 3 stocks to 1 at one point. Like he's like these aren't games where like Zane is just like totally throwing, right? These are games where like for parts of them, Wally is just like straight up beating him. And I
Yeah.
and I in a sense it sort of reminds like watching it gave me the same feeling of watching Lovage beat Leffen, where it's like, what am I watching? Like is this like the player who's doing the upset is playing very well, and like you can tell that the player that they're upsetting is not like 100% against this other player, but it's happening in a very strange way where the other one is just kind of like solidly beating the other one, and solidly beating the other one, and it's like like is this really happening? like
Well,
why is Zane down 1 stocks to 3, and like I don't have any way of justifying it other than like this guy's just beating him really bad.
I mean, he was so Wally. I think there's a lot of reasons that this should not be seen as a fluke. I think you're right. Wally did beat him in a lot of interactions. Wally also went on to 3-0 Skurzo. Like, obviously, this was not a fluke tournament for Wally. And a player who, like we said, beat Kaduri, took a set off of Akla. Like, he has got incredible results. And hey, Pal in 2019 went up 3 stocks to 1 versus Pew Pew. Wasn't able to get that one. So this is the this is the nice little like the ending to that story. Um, but uh, but yeah, I think that one thing we have to mention is that this is an insane set, right? You watch Lovitch versus Leffen, and it feels insane while you're watching it, but also Lovitch kind of destroys him at the end. It's not close. This was like the most like I was watching this from home. I was trying to go. Unfortunately, some family stuff came up, and like nothing makes me regret that more than the fact that I couldn't have seen this live. But like I was watching from my little like laptop and just popping off because every single game, all 2 of them, I guess, ended like so long. It was just like every interaction took forever, and they were both at high percent, and it just like felt like it's like okay, we've seen this before. This is where like the up and coming player like gets like a really good start, and then it gets just down to nerves, and the top player takes it. But that didn't happen. Like both of these
That's a
games
great
went to
point.
last stock and stayed at last stock, last hit, and just like every single time they would get hit. No, that up tilt's not gonna kill. Like, oh god, it was insane. I think that like we can talk about how Wally earned this win, and it wasn't a fluke because very clearly showed that in the set he was really beating the brakes off of Zayn, and but also at the same time he was
He was
close
able
as
to hold
fuck.
him off. Not
It
many
was
people can
insane.
do that.
No, so that was very it's just like great to see. And then I believe like close after we've got Craig beating Moki, and then we've got all this other stuff happening. Yeah, it was pretty insane tournament. Krudo, was there? I know while you're at the event, well, I know from being at events that's hard to catch everything. I do not know from being in top 16, top 8 of an event how hard it is to catch stuff. But I assume that a lot of these upsets and stuff kind of went over your radar. What was it like on the day
I
of the event?
I caught a lot of them, honestly. The only
Yeah.
one I missed was Wally Zane, and
Oh.
someone told me about it, and I just didn't even believe them like all day. And then I just went on with my day, and then eventually I was like, oh my god, this guy was not fucking with me. But I saw Lunar Dusk went out 1-0 on Mango, and that was crazy. The amount of people watching that was insane. It was like a pretty close game 2 or game 3, I don't remember. Then he lost. That one was almost insane. B-Bats went up 1-0 on Zane, and
Yeah.
then games 2 and 3 were like literal like 110% last stock games, and Zane is popping off as he takes games against B-Bats, and it was like, wow. Essie Kalindi I saw too.
Yeah.
That one was crazy. Essie did really well this tournament. Essie, so she played Sheik, and both games were on FD against Kalindi's Fox, and she 2-0'd him. And her pop off was crazy.
Struck to FD. Wow.
Struck to FD, then Kalindi just goes back to FD.
Damn, she's insane. Never mind.
Fun fact: Essie is going to be on my crew for Shine.
That's sick.
Good for you, man.
That's cool that
yeah,
she's going
Essie, Dreffen, like there was. It's just I think that it's really easy to look at this tournament and let's say like, oh, this is like the Slippy kids, right? But I mean, obviously none of that's actually true because these kids didn't start like Slippy, and they're also not kids, I guess. But like it wasn't even just upsets from up and comers, right? You can look at Wally, you can look at Craig, but really, I think a lot of these upsets were from people who we've known to do well in the past and have come back. We've seen Rishi top 8, we've seen Essie to have a great run. Dreffen beat none in an insane set. It's just like, yeah, this was a great tournament for breakout performances, but honestly, I think it's overshadowing the fact that this was a big comeback tournament for so many people here. Edwin,
Yeah, I want to get to this right away because I think because I listen to you a lot when it comes to rankings. I trust your opinion a lot when it comes to knowing which players are due for a rebound and which ones people are sleeping on who should come back. And while I was not on for most of last week, I do remember you talking about the fact that Axe's number 29 spot, you're evaluating a resume of results. Maybe 29 is not too unfair, but if you know that it's Axe, something did feel off about him not being in the typical top 20, maybe even top 10 spot that he had for different portions of his career. And I think this weekend we saw an amazing, like just an example of like, when we see Axe at a major and we think like, how well can he do? This is the kind of Axe we expect to see, right? We expect Axe to be able to, contend with or outright beat people like Moki. We expect him to be in top eight, maybe not winner side, but we expect him to see him playing for losers for 5th place. We expect to see him take Mango to the brink as he did again in yet another set this year. I think if you're an Axe fan, there's a lot to look at this tournament, and because it's like, even if he's not doing something that necessarily blows your mind, it's the fact that he's showing you the best of himself, right? With like look, if you want to build a path or like a bracket for Axe to do well, like even if you do it, like at a certain point you have to see him do it, right? So I just think for Axe, this is such a great reminder of the caliber of player that he can be when given the opportunity and when he's playing really well. So I think if there's any winner of this event outside of the the person who won it, I think Axe leaves SmashCon looking great. I think if you're him, you go into Shine and all your other tournaments with some confidence. You look like someone that could be well on your way back to being, forget top 25. The kind of acts we saw in this weekend. If we see that kind of acts at more events, this is back to a top 15 player that we knew for a lot of the last 5 years, maybe even higher.
But Krudo's still top 20 in this scenario, right?
Yeah.
Like he doesn't knock Krudo out, right?
No. I think Krudo's maintained his spot.
Okay.
In the top.
Krudo's 19th actually. He gets a bump.
Yeah. I did think one of the storylines heading into this event, as you all know, I love storylines. I did think the possibility of Krudo just casually winning SmashCon with Sheik would have been really funny, considering how much it was hyped up with J-Mook over like the last few months or so. That it would have been so great if just like at the end of all of it, it was just Krudo who snapped the Sheik main drought. I think it would have been pretty great. Right?
Yeah, I saw people saying that. A lot of people mentioned that, honestly, and it would have been pretty funny. It wasn't like the most unrealistic bracket to win.
Yeah,
like,
exactly.
If Plop was there or Cody, it would be like a lot harder. But yeah, it would have been still pretty crazy. I would have dodged one if I had beaten Laud, so it still wouldn't have been anything J-Mook wouldn't have done there.
We'll see about that. Am I willing to say Krudo is actually better than J-Mook? Who knows? We'll have to wait until we get to our ballots, which I guess should be soon, considering we've been talking about SmashCon for a while. But we can't not talk about SmashCon and talk about the person who won. So obviously we have to talk about this. You know, we had our little podcast. We had two Zane predictions, and a Laud. I was closer. That's all I'll say. And hey, someone who's very close to getting into grand finals winner side. But obviously all of us were wrong. And this was someone who I honestly, maybe I'm speaking for myself here, I honestly don't think was a big of a shock to anyone. It's great to see him actually do it. But Mango, when he took SmashCon, I personally wasn't surprised. What about you two?
I wasn't insanely surprised, like thinking about it, but watching the sets, I don't know. They looked pretty. A lot of the times I thought he was literally just gonna lose, and then he just came back and won. It was insane. Like Game 5 versus Laud, I was just like, oh well, Mango just got peached. That happens.
Yeah.
Going to losers. Then he just makes like the most ridiculous 4-stock in a row comeback. Versus
Yeah,
Juan too, I think.
He was down versus Laud. He was down like 4 stocks to 2, I think.
Yeah, and then he didn't lose another stock. I think he just took 4 straight.
Yeah, you're right. The way that he did it was it was insane. And I will say this as someone who turned off the stream after Zayn lost. I will say that I was like, okay, I see the writing on the wall here. But from what I was able to see live and what I was able to see through VODs, yeah, this is like a probably not incredibly surprising result necessarily. The idea that Mango can beat HBox is like, yeah, we kind of believe in his ability to do that. And personally, when I've been asked like how many people I think can win majors, I usually tried out the top 7 or so, and then I add Mango. Like you put Mango at the end of that because I am not willing to bet against Mango, like for when it comes to winning a major. And so for that reason, I wasn't incredibly surprised. But you're right, the way that he did it was like insane. We've seen him do stuff like this before. Obviously, we've seen him be like one bear away by Swedish Delight from like losing a tournament into winning Gommel. So like we've seen this type of thing before, but it was a nice little thing to see this in 2022 to see Mango, this comeback Mango shine again. Edwin, we've talked about this a ton. I want to talk specifically about his sets versus HBox because the two of us have had some dejected conversations about Mango's Fox in the matchup and Mango's Falco too, but just like this idea of running in and it's just like, man, Mango, can you like not lose one interaction on Stadium and just run at him on on the ledge for once? But hey, it all worked out. So Edwin, I want to hear your opinion on this because we kind of commiserate in grief when it doesn't work out. But when it does work out, we don't talk about it a lot.
Yeah,
so,
I think.
What are your thoughts?
Yeah, so I think if you're a Mango fan, the way he won this, like particularly in the kind of like grit that he had, and that FD comeback in particular stands out. The balance of like playing aggressive, but also like picking his spots like more intelligently and playing proper mix-ups and everything. I think the way that he won and was able to just kind of like pull out victories against HBox by the grit of his teeth. I'm not really used to seeing like I'm not saying that never happened before in the past, but usually in sets where Mango would beat HBox, he'd go up like 2-0 or something, or like win 3-1, right? Like it'd look like pretty decisive, but like and like maybe close, but not like super pulling out like you pulling a genie out of a bottle kind of thing, right? When you think of those kinds of victories, honestly, I think of HBox wins a lot more.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
so for Mango to kind of like rediscover this discipline he had, this is just my opinion, right? Like I'm sure he has a different way of internalizing it. Maybe other people think differently, but I think that the way that he won this tournament, and particularly the way that he beat HBox, I think it's a very encouraging sign if you're a Mango fan. Hungry Box Mango historically kind of a rivalry where in the modern era they seem to kind of take turns beating up on each other before it's like the other one's turn to win like 3 or 4 sets in a row or whatever. This kind of was like their thing in 2015 to like 2017. Then HBox kind of had the lead for a long time, and now it seems, and then it felt like that was continuing, and now Mango's won a tournament over him. So I'm kind of interested to see the dynamic of that rivalry and continue. Like, I'm kind of excited to see where it develops from here. I will say, like, I don't think the prospect of a Mango victory on its own was too nuts, but I do think, like, if you asked me to imagine like a path to him winning, I think it would probably. I don't think it would be through Zane, but I will say I didn't expect it to be through HBox twice. I thought if they played more than once at a tournament, HBox is going to win the second time every time. That's just what that would have been my starting assumption heading into this event. My assumption would be if he beats HBox once, he doesn't want to play him again. So for him to beat him twice in a row, I think if you're a Mango fan, and I mean like beating Laud in the run back of the set that they had at a pound, coinciding with the week before or the tournament before where he beat Fiction in a run back of their setup pound. I think if you're a Mango fan, there's a lot to really like. I want to see him against Zane and IBW. I want to see him against Leffen if we get a chance. If we get a chance to see another Mango J set, that'd be great. I don't think this victory makes Mango top 5, but I think like it shows us that somewhere in it. I can't think of it as good of a nickname as Touchdown Juan for Mango, but I think what do we got? Like home run Mango, slam dunk Mango, uh, field goal Mango. I don't know.
I think it's field goal Mango.
Well, let's call it a good Mango. Yeah, I think this is repeatable for him.
Yeah, I would like to see that because I think that throwing Mango into the current mix of players that we have right now would just be like well, I was gonna say that's the one thing we're missing. I forgot about one little blonde child from now from Texas, who I think is also another aspect that we need to throw in there. So whenever we get to see the top 7 or 8 that we currently have, all who I think could win a major, throwing Mango, throwing Wizzy, I honestly think that this is probably the most wide open that we've seen anything. And we talked about that before, right? We were like, oh, this is like such a great time to watch Melee because we don't know who can win. And the fact that we said that, I honestly feel like there are more people since the time that we said that who can win now is just insane to me. But I want to kind of turn the focus on someone who didn't win. But I think, in a way, won. So we have, you talk about touchdown Juan. Maybe this is field goal Juan because he didn't end up winning. But honestly, the second place that HBox got here, it kind of, assuages a lot of doubts that his second place at Pound didn't, that his first places at Goblin Wave Dash didn't. If you are an HBox fan or if you are someone who is an HBox doubter, honestly, this second place does a lot for his reputation, for himself going forward. Being able to beat Zane and the set that he took off of IBW at Gommel is pretty damn huge. And with Zane's recent slump, honestly, if they both enter a tournament next week in Worcester, Massachusetts, Honestly, I would not be surprised to see HBox seated above Zayn. Am I crazy? Am I smoking weed at some of the 15 plus dispensaries in Worcester? Did you guys see, you guys saw that Reddit post?
I saw that
15,
Reddit
50 plus
post.
dispensaries. I feel like that should have been marketing from Shine itself. But regardless, am I smoking weed if I put Juan above Zayn at any upcoming thing? Krudo, how do you feel about this? You are a Central Floridian yourself.
I don't think you're really smoking weed. I feel like it's pretty reasonable. He feels a lot better playing him than he did like a couple months ago. I'm like
Oh,
actually noticing the
scary.
improvement.
Oh
Yeah.
no.
And he's just like he just feels a lot more stable than Zayn. Zayn always just like it just feels like he's slipping a lot when he's playing sets. He just doesn't have that like I don't want to say he doesn't have the killer instinct, but he's missing like the clutchness that Juan has. I'm like never that worried for Juan that he's gonna just start randomly throwing, but it feels like Zayn could like lose control and is a little bit more prone to nerves, I guess. And I think that's
Definitely something
making a big difference.
I mean, pretty much the opposite of what we saw last year.
Yeah. Yeah,
Maybe not that
exactly.
extreme yet. I don't think HBox is 2021 Zane, but yeah, it's an interesting kind of role reversal that we don't see yet. Edwin, I'm gonna let you talk in a second, but I just want to pull up one thing about Zane is that almost every one of these tournaments that he's lost a bunch in a row after winning Genesis and Pound, which still huge accomplishments. I mean, we'll talk about the rankings later, and obviously that has a lot to do with that. But a lot of these he's losing to people kind of for the first time. Um, Maybe not ever, but the first time in the year, the first time in a little bit. So at Summit, he lost to Plup, Vlad, and Jmook. That was Jmook's first win. First win for Plup in a while, kind of broke a big streak. And then Lod, I believe, also, that is a pretty big set streak of victories that was snapped there. Loses to Leffen twice at Battle of BC, so that's just another player you throw in there, someone who he was beating recently. Gommel, he loses to Jmook again, both, I think it's both reverse 3-0s. Double Down, he loses to Amsa, first time in forever. Loses to Slug, first time straight up. Phantom loses to Cody twice, which is the first time since, I think, Summit 12, I would guess. And then SmashCon breaks his streak with HBox and obviously loses to Wally. So it's hard as a Zane like speculator, I guess. I guess that's what I am. It's hard as a Zane speculator to see all of this and say, it's okay, he'll be able to bounce back from this super quickly, because this is not an issue where, oh, okay, like maybe Leffen will get eliminated before grand finals. This is something where it's like, okay, it's all different people, and at each tournament it's someone new. Like at Shine, who do we have to worry about? Like, is that uh, is there could be someone else who does it? It's just that all of these losses that he had are so disparate, and it's hard to see these and go, okay, well, as long as he avoids his one bracket demon, he'll be fine. And I don't know, it's a slump that, in a way, seems like it'll be around for a bit. But also in another way, he's had set wins over all of these people, and the fact that like it doesn't seem impossible versus any of them, except for maybe Leffen. Does seem like if he's able to pull it together, maybe he turns some of these close losses into close victories, and then maybe we're not having this conversation. But for what it is now, yeah, I mean, honestly, in a recency biased ranking, I honestly think you might put HBox above Zane. Edwin, what do you? Am I crazy? Please tell me I'm crazy. Last week I told you if you said that HBox is going to beat Zane, that you should get tested for carbon monoxide because you were like incoherent, and yet and yet it happened. So please tell me about this.
Well, let me say one thing that's very concerning with Zayn. I'm saying this as someone who loves Zayn's Marth. I love watching it. I basically watch
You were
only.
so hesitant to say I love Zane. Who loves Zane? Smart.
Yeah, it's just trying to add a bit of distance. But yeah, I it gives me no pleasure. It hurts me to say this, but like you mentioned it, right? Like the losses are coming from so many different areas, but in recent times, like it's coming from areas where we expect him to win, right?
Yeah.
Are we used to a period of time where IBW is the one that double eliminates from a tournament? Not really. Are we used to HBox beating him? How many sets has it been offline? Like 7 or something before he beat him, including online. It was at like 12. Like
Yeah.
like basically the longest losing stretch of HBox's career against anyone, right? So it's like we're seeing that snapped, and I gotta say the way that it was snapped, the way that HBox was playing him, HBox came in with a very good game plan. He was edge guarding him really well. He was doing like the Z shield trick by or like rolling to the ledge, but he was using it as like a pseudo mix up to force a jump from Zane or an air dodge. But he was also doing it with a Puff facing away from the stage and facing toward towards the edge of the stage and everything. He had a better edge guard chart flow chart. He wasn't just getting dash up grabbed while crouching in place. He was wave dashing back. He was vying and fighting for position. He was taking his time, picking his spots, but he wasn't. People make a big deal of like him camping Zane on the platforms. But if anything, he was sort of minimizing the damage that Zane could do to him. I don't think it was as simple as him just like camping and like not letting him play the game or whatever. Like he came in there with a very good game plan, and I think the scary part is that it felt repeatable. I didn't think Zane was particularly playing too badly. I thought this could be a new, like sometimes when you see a long losing streak end, it depends on how it ends, right? Like sometimes a long losing streak ends, and then the player who beat that player a bunch of times previously just goes back to whooping them, right? This felt like a set that could happen again. Now will HBox always win it? Will it go back to 2019 when HBox was just ripping Zane's heart out every other turn or whatever? No, I don't. Or at least I don't think that's likely, right? But I do think that if these two play again, I think that period of time. This is just my gut. I think that period of time where we saw Zane just like stomp HBox every set and like make it look like a joke. I think that era it does seem kind of likely that it's done, right? And in general, I feel like that era of Zane just like having certain opponents on lock, like Cody, Hungrybox obviously snapping a long streak. I think Amsa, like even if he's favored over those players or he starts going positive over them again, they're not locks, right? And I think it's very different than the dominant Zane that we've seen come out in glimpses, right? Like the dominant Zane that we saw in the spring, right? So, to go back to that point, like, is HBox better than Zane? I want to say no for the year, but if we're looking just at the summer, like let's go through the events, right? What has Zane shown us? He's shown us Gommel. HBox had a better Gommel, so that's one for Team HBox. Double down, both are pretty bad, but Zane didn't endanger an entire venue after and enter maskless after throwing up blood. So I'm gonna give this one to Zane. But then you got Phantom versus Wave Dash, right? I think Zane's Phantom, I think, is unambiguously worse than Hungrybox's Wave Dash. So I'm gonna give Hungrybox the advantage there. Then we talk about SmashCon.
Wait, did Zane throw a chair as well?
Zane didn't throw a chair also, but so we're talking about 4 comparable events that they've had since the start of the summer, more or less, right? Maybe you count Battle of BC and that goes Zane's order. You're starting to notice a trend here, right? So has HBox had a better year than Zane? No, I don't think so. Could you argue HBox above Zane for seeding? Is HBox trending higher right now? Honestly, yeah, I think so. HBox, as insane as it sounds, there's a more recent time when Hungrybox has taken a set from IBDW than Zane, which is wild. I think that's just mind blowing to me. If you told me at any point in the spring that was going to happen, I would have been like, no way.
Makes me sad. Um, it reminds me of I think the very unfun fact for me that the Sacramento Kings have reached the conference finals more recently than the 76ers had by a year, by only a year, but let's all yuck it up. But yeah, it does. That does remind me of one of those things. It is a crazy world that we live in. Or maybe HBox over Zane isn't incorrect, but I think it's time. Let's go to a world where I think we can all say definitively Zane is over HBox, and that world is the past. 2022, couple weeks ago. So we did the MPGR. All of us here were balladers, and man, I thought we were gonna come in, kind of swing our dicks around and say, yeah, hey, Krudo, we've been balladers since 2017, and here I forget that Krudo, you've got a bit of a history yourself with the ballot. So we were all able to do this, and Kurt, I want to talk to you. You both as a player and and as a ballader. Uh, were you like apprehensive about this season? Because I talked to a lot of people about the ballots, and they were just like, "That's just like fuck, man. I don't know what to do. I don't know like who to put anywhere. This is the hardest ballot I've ever had to do." I mean, I've known people who didn't do the ballot because it was hard, or they just disagreed with the ranking period. Going into this, what did you think about what we have?
I think conceptually, I don't think it was a great idea to do rankings. I think there are positives, like a lot of the
Like you mean
players
tough
that
one?
came up, yeah, like me, but like Duppy or Android Zero or whoever, just like pretty unknown before quarantine, like getting some kind of recognition for doing well. But then it's also just like most people going had like 3 tournaments on there. I don't think it was like particularly hard to order, but it just definitely felt really bad to do a ranking with such a like a really small season. And
Yeah.
then
Would you prefer no ranking at all this season?
uh personally, yeah, I could see that people would like it, like especially like in the lower end or like people just I don't know, just people who came up during Slippy, like VBATs or whoever. Like I could see that being nice for them, so I'm not like completely apprehensive about it, but just like sticking Mango at like 11th is just because of like this 3 month period is a little
Yeah.
ridiculous.
Yeah, definitely a bit suspect in terms of like how much weight this actually carries.
Yeah.
But no, I think you're right. It is like yeah, it's fraudulent. This is like probably the most fraudulent ranking that we've had in a while. Not ever. 2013. I'm still got ranked super high because of friendlies. Like
I heard that.
let's not
That's
forget that.
crazy.
But yeah, so like this is just kind of harken back to maybe a little bit more of a fraudulent rank, and I say that in very nice terms, and I think that we do see some spots that we're going to be talking about later when we reveal our ballots that it does seem kind of vibe based, but I don't know. I'm of two minds on this. I think you're right. I'm glad that the period was extended until Double Down because the
Yeah.
original one, I believe, ended at Battle of BC, which is just like that would not have worked. So I'm glad that we were able to get a few extra tournaments of data. Um, and yeah, I think you're right in the sense of like it's good for the Soofs and the fucking Suppies and the B-Bats and all them out there to get their recognition. Um, you know, if you cut off the list at 30, I think it becomes a lot more correct, I guess, quote unquote. But I do think that you lose out on seeing a lot of these players who've been grinding get this recognition. So to me, like, do I think that like there's a lot of weight behind any of the 31 through 50. No, I think that like you can throw those in any order. I don't think Logan is the 20 or 46th best player in the world. I think he's probably better than that. But they are someone who is just like kind of a casualty of doing like a really small ranking and not going to a ton of tournaments. But without any further ado, we might as well get into it. We were 3 ballotters, and Krudo, I did ask for your consent to do this. Edwin, forgot to ask you. We're going to show your ballot to everyone.
Mhm.
We did it last time we did a ballot, and this is a nicer atmosphere because last time we did a ballot, we cornered you, and me and Dark Genix, online haters, got on your case for weighing online results. So we did not have. Wait, let me make sure. We didn't have this problem this time around, right? You didn't do
No,
online.
I did not rank
Okay.
roll back
All right.
around.
So we didn't have this problem this time around. So it should be a little more of a nicer festivity this time. But so we're gonna cut to our the first kind of chunk of our ballots. So this is 50 through 36. Obviously, this is going to be a super long stream if we go over every single thing, but I think it's going to be cool to talk about some just like points of contention here, something like this. And Krudo, you mentioned it earlier. I think this might have been before we went live, but you mentioned this. Where's Professor Pro? Is he above 35 on your list, or is he
He
below 50?
is literally in another. I think Professor Pro or Zealot were the 2 lowest on mine, and not that I think they're that not
Mm-hmm.
better than most of the people, but both of them, it just felt like he actually didn't have enough results, and then Professor Pro is just like I was supposed to rank Professor Pro off of only beating Frenzy and then losing to American players, and it was like this doesn't feel right, but man, I don't know. You guys both had him kind of high, so now I'm kind of like, oh, maybe I grief this a little bit. But it felt
Uh,
I didn't want to rank him solely off of UK results, so I basically abstained on him.
I think
And
that's fair, right? This list is a summer MPGR and how it's been said, but like this list was specifically brought up as a North American PGR. So I think that this idea of just like looking at beating Frenzy 6 times or whatever it was, it's just like, yeah, what does this mean to me? Definitely someone who, like Zealot, was the beneficiary of good seating and placed their seating every single time, basically. And that's just like, okay, great. You didn't beat people above you and you didn't lose to people below you. So you just like have a blank resume, basically.
yeah,
For your prof, yeah, I was able to kind of look at those wins off Frenzy, who I think is also pretty good this year. And was able to read into that a little bit. I can see Prof lower on my list. I can see Prof maybe not that much higher. But I was happy to see him ranked. I definitely think that he was in the top 50, but I'd like to hear that from you. Talk to me about Sunsei, Krudo.
do you guys
Sunsei's
both
not
have?
on here yet, right? Is he?
Oh
Is
yeah,
he? Is he on your top 35?
yeah. He was
Okay.
higher. He was also someone I was like, I feel like he's another one who is kind of in the pool of the small ranking period, making it really awkward to rank him. He ended up
I
higher. I wrote down all the results, so I'd have to double check because I don't quite remember, but he is definitely higher than that. He's like 33 on mine. He's 35 or 33. I don't really remember.
well, we'll get to it next time, but it's going to be interesting to see. Yeah, Sunsei for me, Edwin, I want to talk to you about this. Sunsei for me is, yeah, it's kind of a zealot situation where he does have the S2J win, which maybe I should be viewing that as like a lot higher. But I think it's very similar to what people have around here. Ara has like the Moki win. KJH has the HBox win. It's just that he did not go to a lot of events. And I was a little kinder to people who weren't doing that this year just because of COVID and everything. But yeah, I was just not seeing a lot of data and some of the stuff that he was at. I believe he lost to Eddie Mexico, he lost to Ara. Like he was not able to have this like ironclad set of losses plus like a big win. It seemed a little more wishy washy to me. Edwin, you have him in a very similar position. What did you think about his year?
You're talking about just to make sure I'm clear. You mentioned a
Sensei.
couple. Yeah, I think Sensei it's kind of strange, right? Because the prompt was talking about like what like when you get a prompt like the one on this one, you're supposed to assess people's results within a given period of time, right? So Sensei, this is someone that we've seen like when he was active during the pandemic, when we seen him, in other formats of the game, like online and everything. This is someone that showed glimpses of being like potentially a top 20 player, right? Like we sort of have this idealized expectation for how Sunsei will perform at tournaments and what his general skill level is, right? And we saw some of that come to fruition at a very big event like Battle of BC, right? Where he made top 8 and he took a set off S2J. Now, if we're talking about assessing results within a given time frame, which is what we're supposed to do for something like the PGR, I'm not really convinced that one event like that and a somewhat two kind of underwhelming performances for someone like Sunsei. I'm not convinced those are indicative of his future skill or his current skill, but I do think that when it comes to evaluating results, compared to other players and what they were able to perform, I do think Sunsei, unfortunately, just by virtue of not having much because of the year or whatnot, at least on my ballot, and I think a couple of the other balloters agreed with me on this. I just don't really think he had the like. He both didn't have the results that we've kind of like associate with him over the last 2 years or so. But in terms of like making a ranking where you're essentially reviewing other people's resumes, sometimes it's that someone else did really great and entered a lot or was able to do it multiple times. Whereas with Sunsei, we really just didn't see that much of him this year, except for one event where he did great and two events where he sort of faded out in the background. So definitely someone that, like, if you ask me right now, like, how do you think Sunsei will do against this massive list of players? I think he beats most of them. I think he's got a great shot against players in the 11 and 25 tier. I think he plays the game really, the game tape for whatever that's worth. I think he's like a really talented, amazing player. If you ask me to rank him off pure vibes, I'd say like top 30, right?
Yeah,
So
which is kind of how he got ranked
yeah, which is
this year.
kind
It
of how he got
seems
ranked. But if you
he
add,
got ranked. He got ranked 31st, and I remember
mm-hmm.
we're cool guys. Sometimes we get the list a little bit before it comes out for whatever purpose we might need it for. And I remember messaging Edwin like before he got, and I was like, "Huh, I can't tell you anything, but I feel like there's a lot of vibes like based rankings on here, and I can't be mad because I agree with the vibes." And basically, he gets to see it a couple days later, and he is like, "Oh yeah, Sunsei, right?" And I'm like, "Yes." I think I agree with you. Sunsei definitely someone who got ranked pretty highly. I would love to see the highest he got ranked, because if he got ranked 31st, that must mean that he was ranked in the 20s. So that'd be a pretty insane to me based off of the resume he had, but like not insane based on his skill level. So yeah, I think that's fair. Okay, Edwin, we have a lot to go through here, and this is going to be the shortest like group that we talk about probably, considering we've got a lot of meaty stuff coming forward. I cannot go forward without talking about two things here. Krudo, can you point out Edwin's list? Do you know the two players I want to talk about?
I think I have a feeling which two you're gonna bring up.
Who do you think?
Oh wait, you go ahead.
No, Krudo, I want to hear from you first.
I feel like Frenzy or Vivas is pretty high. I was wondering where Zuppy was on your list, but I guess Zuppy's just higher. And then
Ooh.
SDJ is kind of odd. But
Okay, not any of the two I was mentioning. I
yeah,
was mentioning the Swooper being at 37th, and I'm
okay,
going to hear it Skurzo at 45. But
yeah.
Edwin, feel free to court any of these players, anything that you think is
Yeah, so I'll say this much with Swooper. I think Swooper has a lot of really like big wins, right?
Cody, Slug, SFAT,
Cody, Slug,
3 wins over
Espat,
top 25 players.
I think those are amazing wins for him, right? However, I do think that like so just the way that I go, this is just my way of doing ballots. The way I kind of go through players is that like I try to effectively like find how they perform versus different tiers of people, right? So like for me, what's really important, at least just in terms of like how I evaluate results, is like how you do against your peers, right? So I kind of like have a general idea of how good players are given by their results, and I put them in different groups. So to me, I'm not like I don't really think Swooper dominates a lot of his peers in like this given area, and like sort of the range of players that would be around here or just outside the ballot, right? So like basically the way I did this for every player is I compiled their head to heads against other people on the ballot, but then I compiled those head to heads into specific groups, right? So like this is how this player did against say 1 to 8, and this is how this player did against say like 9 to 26 or something, right? And one thing I found is that like Swooper had a great spread of wins in each of the areas, right? So like
Yeah.
you had a slug win, so it's like, oh, this covers like 13 to blah 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 or something, right? Like he has an IBW win, he has a SFAT win, right? But something that I noticed with Super, at least relative to the people that I had above him, is that I don't think like for me like doing really great against 30 to 50 or like 30 to the end of the ballot and like having a great cumulative record there. Like if someone is say like 10-2 versus that field of players, chances are they're probably a top 20 player, right? Like or to me at least that's more of a mark of like success within a year than necessarily like one win in each of the tiers of players, even the ones that I would consider like quote unquote above, right? So for me, I think Swooper like had really big standout moments of the year that are certainly like worth seeing as successful. I think they're great. I think it's a mark of like being a good player, obviously. But I think relative to some of the other people I had around him, I thought they just performed really well against their tier, and like they that like their performances were standout enough to where I wanted to reward them a little more. That's Swooper at least.
So I don't think you're smoking crack, but I think you're smoking something a little more than weed. You might be smoking like I don't know. Krudo, where's a spliff rank on this? Is that more than weed? Like
Definitely more than weed.
do you think he's smoking a spliff here? I honestly, Edwin, I love you. I think you hate the Swooper. Uh,
No!
and now he was driving our good friend Pipsqueak around, maskless, and Pipsqueak did get COVID.
Yeah, I guess
So
I'm
if
upset
you
about
come
that, but
away
I
hating
don't
the
hate
swooper,
Cooper.
if you come away hating the swooper, I think that's you have your reasons. I'm looking at this and I'm just like, man, I I don't get it. Because everyone on this list at the end of it, everyone 35 to 50, what we're looking at right now, it's kind of like you get your chump change, you get your one win here, and then you get a good rank. For I put Suppy at 36. Really, his wins outside of locals were Aklo and Salt. It's not a lot, and he also lost to Noir at Genesis, which biggest tournament of the year. Uh, Having a loss like that might not be incredibly great. Locals, he did a lot better. He got some wins at like nightclub and stuff, but it's hard to say that like I evaluate that as much. The fact that you would put Zuppy presumably above Swooper, who beat who I can only imagine you have as number two, top 20 player in Slug, top 25 player in SFAT, top presumably 30 player in Swift, and took a split set with Skurzo. I don't get it, man. I think when HBox talks about wanting an algorithm because of bias, I think this is it. Unfortunately, I think because of this episode, the tides are changing. I don't get it. Krudo, we're gonna see the where we have Swooper, unless you put Swooper below top 50. But what do you think? Am I
I
smoking weed saying that he is
no,
smoking a split? Okay.
I agree with you completely. I don't know. I feel like he has a lot of good wins, and he has like pretty awful losses, and like Dance
Yeah,
the
I
Man.
mean, like his
And
double down was pretty bad. Like I think his Genesis also I think was not like particularly amazing either for someone like he has a lot of performances like that where he's losing to like
He lost
30
to
to 50 ranked
KJH and
players, right?
Salt, right?
yeah,
Yeah, I mean, I think that's like
I don't think that's a horrible tournament either. Honestly, I just feel like he has like so many standout performances or like good wins that I just can't even tier him at where you tiered him. But
look at
I also get how you did that.
Yeah, it's
at
just like for me, I think like doing like dominating your peers like is and like repeatedly doing it is like a bigger mark of success and like your trajectory in a year versus just like every three tournaments or so like you just like am I just a hater on like volatility or
I think you're a
something?
hater. I don't think he didn't. I don't think we have enough data to show that he gets trounced on by the people around him. And I don't know, man. This is why we do the rankings. Of course, we can have some fun conversations, and I don't want to blow you up. But hey, if you're from New Jersey, at least you have some solace in the fact that VBATS was high on your list. Okay, so we're gonna move on to the next little segment right here. This is 21 through 35. This is where the swooper's going to end up on two of these lists, which I guess is a good way to bring us to our next thing. I was kind of picking out some things that I saw interesting between the two. But Krudo, I'm going to throw it over to you for this one. Do you see any differences between your list that you want to point out, or anything that you want to talk about? Seems like for the
Uh,
most part, a lot of this is similar.
yeah, I had Suf and Aura a lot higher than you guys. I
Yeah.
think is the main one, and then other than that, it's like pretty similar. I just really value like good wins in a
Mm-hmm.
period this small, and it kind
Mm-hmm.
of shows in how I rank them. But I think Suf beating like so even though we have to rank Zealot really low for no results, I feel like that's still a really good win. And then he
Mm-hmm.
also beat Fiction. Who else did he beat? He beat Fat Goku and Null also, which are I had him 1-0 on Null. I don't know if other people had him with a different record on Null.
Yeah. Well, that's so. I was on waiting. Oh no, I'm on waiting for game today. I was on Radio Melee yesterday, and I honestly very happy to be on. I thought they were very courteous, a little too courteous. They like kept telling me that they're like, thank you so much for your work on the ranking. I was like, you're welcome, but I actually don't think I did a lot of work. Like I did my ballot. I did do some work on the side for the MPGR, but like I didn't make it myself. But on the show, I did talk about how there's some like just like in the broader scope of what rankings are. I talked about some things that kind of can change rankings in ways that we don't even think about. And one of the ways that I think really can affect a ranking that no one talks about is how this data is presented. Um, so there's a lot of ways, like if you show the wins in a specific tournament, if you just show list of wins, Let's say you like Suf loses to Casper once and beats Casper 9 times, but you only show one loss to Casper, as opposed to like a 9-1 record. And I think that this comes into play here, where the delineation between locals, which this year for the first time there was something in the prompt about, you may include them if you choose, which I feel like a lot of people read as, okay, they don't count. But the delineation between locals and regionals kind of gets blurry, and it becomes this thing of like, well, what is lawless, right? Like, what is a monthly in SoCal, and what is the new Mang, and like, what's so we did see some things where like Null and Suf have played more than once, but whatever determined, the data did only show one set. That's a long way to talk about this one Null versus Suf set record, but I do think it's an interesting little thing. If you want to hear more on it, you can go over to GG Melee, I guess I'll give them a plug so you can hear me talk about it. But no, I think you're right. I think it does come into an interesting thing here. Suf definitely someone who had some really good wins that on paper in this specific instance looked really good, and then maybe undeservingly so on some lists, and maybe deserving to some extent. People might kind of knock the Null win for other Null losses at events. Maybe that's deserving, maybe not. And then the whole thing of Fiction going like,
Yeah.
can't believe you guys are counting this. And the way that Edwin and I have always talked about this is that like you should count it for the person who wins the set. I don't think worse about Fiction, and you will see that on my ranking. But yeah, I don't know. I think I can't say Edwin's smoking a spliff for putting Swooper 10 spots below what I had him, without unfortunately saying that you're smoking a spliff for putting Suf like 12 spots above where I have him. So the spliff goes around. Here, how about this? Edwin Buddy. Or where am I smoking a spliff here? Call
Honestly,
me out.
I think I wish I could find something that you were smoking a spliff on, other
I think
than
I got Ben a little high. You've got Ben higher than me, so maybe that's not an issue.
Yeah, I think the only thing that I would have said that you'd be smoking a spliff on, apparently I'm smoking a spliff on with the Swooper. I just don't think his records against his peers are that amazing.
Okay, all right, man. You spoke your piece on the
whatever. I gotta move by this. I gotta pass the spliff. Yeah, honestly, I think everything here you have is like pretty good. Like there's not really anything that, other than just our disagreement on Swooper. I think this is all pretty like solid that you have. I want to see your 11 to 20 or what you have for the rest of the list, because
I think that is the juicier part. Is there anything here, Krudo? Is there anything here that you want to point out of anyone's list, of your own, of either of us, that you want to talk about before we move on to 11 to 20?
I think I would have Polish pretty low, and that's kind of interesting.
Yeah. Edwin, I guess, is that just lack of data for someone at
yeah,
that range?
I just want to see them at more events. That's really it.
Yeah.
Hey man, same here. I'm very good though.
Yeah.
Okay, so
Yeah.
I think we're good to go further. We all basically agree at some point. Krudo, you did put Pipsqueak lower than we did. Unfortunately, you are going to the gulag for that. That's melee stats Pipsqueak to you. But we will forgive you. So let's move on here. This is the top 20. This is the juicy part. This is the meat. We've been having some beautiful French onion soup. This is the steak. Or Edwin, in your case, this is like the shrimp scampi. Krudo, do you eat meat? Do you have any dietary restrictions?
None.
Okay, so this is your steak. This is your huge tomahawk steak. I know that the top is something that we need to talk about. We're going to get to it, but let's hold off for a little bit. Let's talk about some of the stuff below it. We are all in the hand-holding club on this one. Mango at 12. I can talk about this. Krudo, I want to hear 5th at SmashCon. Krudo, I want to hear your thoughts on why Mango got 12th here.
I just tried to look at it. I feel like I was attached. I had Mango 11th originally, and I still felt like I was kind of biased about it. Fiction just seemed like, if you don't discredit him for Smash or whatever he was drunk at Smash Camp, he felt like a more consistent player. He still had like pretty high tier wins. I'm trying to go to his results. I have them right in front of me. I don't know. I just like knocked Mango a lot for losing to just like Fizzwiggle, and do you lose to anyone else that bad? Not really.
Yeah,
Fizzwiggle.
it's interesting because I think I run into this maybe once a ranking period, where I have like really toss ups, and it doesn't happen that often. I had it with like West Balls and Shroomed last time we did a top 100, where I was like, these two seem so evenly matched to me, and then it just comes down to like one simple thing can be the knock. And I think I put Shroomed above because West Balls was dropping a lot of sets at locals to the point where he was having like not good records with people who were ranked like 5 spots below him. Not just like a single set loss, I want to be clear. And even that, it took like to literally have identical resumes to me to even pull that one out. And it's same thing here. I had Fiction and Mango. I had them 11th. I had them 12th. I was kept moving them around, and it literally just came down to like a coin toss scenario where I was hyper specific on stuff that really wouldn't cross my mind for other players, and I looked through it, and I almost gave Mango the benefit of the doubt because I was like, well, he's not DQing from tournaments because he's not going. And I was like, that's like the shittiest reason. It's like, no, he fell asleep, but he's there. He missed his flight, but he took another one. And really what it came down to is that you're right. Fiction's consistency was really great, and I think that Fiction played a lot of people in the tier that he's in the top 20, in the top 25. And I liked to see Fiction go out there at locals. I like to see him build up resumes of players, and I like to see him go to these events and just gain a lot of data. And they went to similar number of events, so it's not even like Fiction went to more necessarily. But yeah, the tipping point for me was the idea of just like Fiction went to a couple things and accrued a whole host of data that just like made me feel more confident in saying that he was better this season. Edwin, what about you? You have so the thing about me and Krudo is that we have Mango at 12th, like you do, but we have Fiction at 11th. You one up us here. You wanna tell us where Fiction is on your
So
list?
Fiction versus so I mentioned before what I tend to prioritize a lot in these lists, right? And it's dominating your peers and people. It's dominating your peers and like just doing amazing against the field. And if there's something that this fucking guy does, it's like he downloads an entire group of players and dedicates his career to just like beating those people. So like for reference, versus my 11 and 25 on the list, like somewhere within that range, within the given time period we had, Fiction was 8-0, and it's like he's 8-0 against a group of players that other people are like 5-3 in if they have those chances, or like even something like 2-5 and stuff like that. Like, so for him to just like clown this entire tier of players, like it's insane within this time span. Like, I'm talking like a win over. It's like he's beating these players so much that when he beats them, it's almost like expected, because it's like he's either like seated above them or considered a peer that like they just happen to lose to. But there's a lot of players like that within the season. So I just naturally took the next step. I'm like, well, if he's beating this tier of players like so badly in like a given amount of sets, what if he's just better than them? Right? Like, because and I think like if any of you have followed Fiction for a while, which I know we've talked about Fiction, there is something kind of amazing about like Fiction when he like beats you, or like beats a certain group of players. He tends to kind of like have their soul locked down, where he's just like, oh, I guess Fiction will never lose a meaningful set to Null again, right? And it's just like, but like he's doing that to like not just in his region at like locals or whatever, but he's doing that to like players just seemingly at will at majors. And I just think that that's so insane to have someone reliable like that, right? Especially in a field of competitors with resumes that aren't so like rock solid in that area, right? Even around his level. So I was willing to take it to the next step and just straight up put him in the top 10, because I think in like a field like today, that kind of ability, or at least within it, or that kind of like trait within a resume, I think stands out like quite uniquely.
Edwin, I don't really agree. Even though I have him 11th, I wouldn't put him 10th. But I will say you're not smoking weed on this one. You're not even smoking anything. I think you're drinking a nice cup of Earl Grey tea. I think that's where you're at with this take. This does
We
you
gotta
you
get
argue
me
this
back
very
real
well.
quick. I'm already uncomfortable with this. I need to do something like well, I guess the rankings are out now, but I gotta put like S2J at like 9 or something now.
Yeah, you got to get your weed back.
Yeah,
Let's.
I gotta get
I
close
saw
to that.
someone talk about this in chat, and normally I hate chat and don't look at them, but I think they bring up something I want to talk about this. So I have Aklo at 15, and I think that this probably is the higher range that people have Aklo at. Specifically, people noted over Moki and Slug. I think those are probably the two big ones of like that range. Um, so I see you guys we have similar rankings, right? Aklo is at 18 on both of yours. Krudo, we both have Slug at 17. You've got Moki at 13. Edwin has Slug at 13. So like we've got very similar rankings. But I just want to talk through my idea on Aklo this year, and I think that this is like very uh, timely. This is something where in a year, and we'll talk about this in our top five. I will bring this up, but in a year like this, where COVID is still around, a lot of top players are getting COVID from certain boats, certain after party boats. We've seen a lot of people DQ because of COVID. We've seen a lot of people not been able to travel. We've seen like flight issues. We've seen all these things that make me kind of shy away from like getting on someone's case for not traveling. Um, Aklo, someone who I don't think falls under any of these like reasons, but still, I think that in a year where I'm not willing to punish inactivity too much, I think Aklo gets the benefit of the doubt here, and his resume, I think is really like really dang good. So he's got a Zuppy loss, he has a Swift loss. And really, other than that, that's basically it. He's lost his aim. He lost a lot. Okay, great. He won a tournament over IBW. He took a set off of him. I think that's a great win. That's a top 5 win. And that's something where a lot of people have here, but with a lot less baggage when it comes to losses. He beat None. He beat Polish. I think very highly of those two players. Does the thing that you're talking about, Edwin. He kind of beats up on the people around him. So he beat Swooper twice, beat Skurzo, beat Face Roll, beat Money. And the fact that this is like the extent of his results would, in a different year, kind of hurt him a lot. But when I look at these results and I compare them to people around him, I compare him to Josh Man or Moki or something like this, I see the same type of things. I see the top 5 win, I see the top 10 win, the top 20 win, and I'm not seeing the baggage that the other people have. Now, they are attending more, so maybe the idea of, well, are they getting hurt by attendance? I don't know. Maybe does that fall into the case here? Possibly, but I think Aklo is a very specific case, and this is a very specific year. But I want to talk about something. So people mentioned over Slug. Slug here, Edwin. We're going to get to you, Mr. 13. Slug has a win on the number 1 player here. I don't think it's any surprise that we all say number 1. It's got a Kadoran win, beat Krudo. but like beats up on the players around him. Krudo, Magi, Spark, Null, KGH, Skurzo, Zamu, JFlex, all incredible wins. All players that like those wins go deep. Now it's the issue of that there's been a lot of tournaments where he goes to where it's like, oh damn, is he gonna lose to Swooper? Is he gonna lose to Salt? Is he gonna lose to Money? And like he's had incredible runs. Got 9th at Genesis, and like if he didn't have to play a Peach, would probably get top 8. But he's also had runs at smaller tournaments that really, really are not very pretty for a player of his caliber. And that just kind of it made me a little wary of something like that, like the idea of like he can do extremely well if his bracket is great. But I do think that he can be put in situations where his bracket is a little scarier. And, if there's Money or if there's B-Bats or if there's Wally or, throw out any player you want. Obviously, we saw him lose to Shootat after the eligibility period. It does get me a little worried about his prospective run at any tournament. And while I know that this is not the same question it used to be, it's not like imagine there's a tournament every weekend. Um, I do see this as something that holds him back more than the other people. And in a way, like the losses that like Josh Man has or the losses that Moki has, it does seem a little more worrisome to me specifically. That being said, I give him 17th of the world. I think that's pretty damn good. Krudo, you also had him 17th. Do you have any thoughts on that?
Yeah, I had him above Aklo, which is kind of I guess the
I
different thing
I
from
think
you
that's
guys.
fair. Yeah.
Yeah, I just kind of rewarded him for attending a little bit more, and like the stuff he attended was bigger on average. They
Yeah.
like both went to VIP, but then Slug had like Genesis and Double Down and
I think
whatever.
I'm an outlier for putting Aklo above, so you don't have to defend yourself on that one.
Okay, yeah, it's like I super agree with what you're saying about like if you stick him in like a bunch of brackets, you're like, oh man, this is just gonna lose to like B bats in round one of this top 64, or just like trying to think of a better example, or like
Yeah.
Dawson or something. Just like these players that other players in the tier are a lot less likely to lose to. But he just had such good performances. I guess I just
Yeah.
kind of I didn't want to put him any lower, but I'd be
No, no.
hesitant to put him higher for sure.
I think we're on the same mind here, and I do want to be clear to anyone who's watching that like I'm not giving Slug a lower spot because I'm like, well, he would lose to B-Bats if he played. I think that's unfair. But I do think that the tournaments that he had did show that there's a weakness to a certain tier of players, which, yeah, that like maybe I was reading too much into a few tournaments, but that did inform my decision to put him below.
Well, I
Edwin,
think you
you
might be reading into
were
one tournament, right? I think you might be reading to the VIP performance, which is admittedly near the start of the season, right? So it's like for what did Slug had? He had VIP performance, he had Genesis, he had the pre-function event, he had function itself, and he had double down, right? So I think like four of those he did great, and like I think at the pre-function event he dropped a set to like what he dropped a set to like he dropped a
JJM.
set to JJM and then won the
They
run back
played a weird
tournament.
matchup though. They like definitely played Chic Peach or something.
Yeah,
So
something weird. So I think I see what you're saying, and in term, I think I agree. There's definitely matchups that make me a little worried for Slug's potential. But as far as like evaluating the season he had, I thought it was like I mean you said it yourself, right? Like he beat the number one player in the world within the season. He had really great showings at like massive events. I think I think what you're saying about like him, showing us a few tournaments that where we see how he performs with a bit of a weaker bracket. Ironically, a lot of that happened after the season, like the Trail Invitational.
yeah.
We
yeah.
saw it happen. We saw it happen after the season. I just think as far as like the actual like tournaments we had on hand and like the sets that we saw him compete in, like even another example of a loss that I think would be considered. Now I think very highly of this player. I think Salt. I think they're an incredible like player. I referred to them as the LeBron James of watching them play, like watching LeBron play high school basketball. Just like an incredible like you can see all the potential there, right? But I think that like even for like an upset loss like that, like Slug still went through losers, like beating several like top 25 players, right? So like even for like as much of his perceived and grounded weaknesses that there might be, as far as his actual resume goes, like I didn't really find much of them like compellingly impactful to place him below like 15, right? Like I sort of see where you guys are coming from. It does feel like it's leaning toward like you said that it wasn't because of like because of how you think he would perform in those matchups, but in a sense it kind of is, right? Like it is sort of vibes based. If you told me that like where do you think Slug will end if he enters like 10 or 15 tournaments, I think you're pretty on the money. But I think as far as like what sets that we actually had and what tournaments, I thought he was I was a little surprised to see him at to see me be in the minority, I guess, at having him 13. I talked to Dark Gen X. Dark Gen X had him 12, which I assume is just Dark Gen X loving the ice climbers. But I was a bit closer to him on this than I was to the rest of the panel, I guess. But I figured I would explain why.
Do you guys want to know something insane? I did not have my mic plugged in this entire time.
That is insane. Someone said you sounded far away.
Mhm.
You
Yeah.
sound so good now. It's like you're right next to me.
Please.
This is I don't know what to say, man. I had my mic plugged in for Radio Melee, so it just seems like I was a little more prepared. Edwin, I think you defended your point very nicely, and I think it's very, it should go without saying, but I think we should say that all these players are all incredibly good, and when it comes down to it, we are talking about evaluating someone with a Zane win, a Kudoran win, versus someone with a IBW win and an AMSA win, versus someone with another IBW and AMSA win, versus someone with a Plup and a Moki win. And it's just like it comes down to all this. All of these players have multiple wins over people in the top 10, people in the top 15. That it really does come down to like splitting hairs, and it comes down to what people kind of value a lot. So do people value consistency? Do people value stuff like this? I do think that Slug didn't really attend a ton of events. I think you're right. He did well at all the ones that he went to, with the exception of Nightclub. But in a way, I was able to punish him more for his bad losses than someone like Josh Man, who international player, attended a ton of shit. So I was willing to kind of gloss over a loss like John Wick as something that maybe I still factored it in when I thought about him, but was a little less worried about what that might mean going forward, or what that might mean for his season. But yeah, I think that's really all of this right here. You can jumble up the top, 13 to 18 any way you want, and I'm probably pretty happy with it. So I think it's probably time that we move on. We talked about fiction, but let's get into the top 10. We all have Lauded 8. I think that was that was like the bellwether for whether or not you deserved a ballot. As if you didn't put Lauded 8, I think you should just not have a ballot. I appreciate the hot take, but yeah, there was a very correct spot here, and probably one of the only like objectively correct spots that we had on the ballot. We all have AMSA at 6, above Plup. Plup, amazing player, but I think that we all can probably agree that AMSA had a lot of great wins as well. Had a lot of great performances, and also was able to come out to more. And even in a year where I said that going to a lot of events might not be the biggest boon to someone's ranking, I think that Pluck probably gets hurt by inactivity a little bit. AMSA gets helped by activity a little bit, and then you just get a separation because you see a lot of AMSA's incredible results from these events. Now, the top 5. I think we must talk about the position of old Touchdown Juan.
Oh.
Krudo, you are someone. You've met him. You've hung out with him. You've invited him into your house. Is that true? Right, that's true, right?
That's not quite true, but we have been at house parties together.
Okay.
I've played quarters with him.
You've played quarters with him. You're very close to this. So you have a unique ability to kind of assess this man's year in a way that maybe we aren't. Now he is the hot topic here, right? He is the he's the reason why we might be having a 2-hour conversation on rankings. I want to hear about why you put him at 4th, because I think that this is a very valid placing, and it's the one where he ended up at. But I think that JMOOC, HBox, Leffen, that is the core of all the arguments that we've seen. So what did you evaluate when you went through those 3?
So with Jamie, he just seemed like far and away the most consistent player, and I guess Zane might have been more consistent. It's hard to say. I feel like he was probably more consistent out of anybody else in the top 5, so I kind of just gave him the edge there. He still went to a pretty reasonable amount of events, and it's definitely not right to knock Leffen for not attending that much. But I feel like Juan only picking up a couple bad losses, being 3-0 on the most consistent player, and just attending a lot more than Leffen kind of pushed him for me. And then Law's not a bad loss for Leffen, but Leffen attending so little and then still dropping us at the Law just also kind of impacted him negatively for me. I feel like his attendance really just pushed him over the edge. Leffen's resume is probably better, or it's looks better for the future, I guess, but I just feel like Juan attended so much, and then only picked up like what are even his bad losses? He lost to Kalindi,
Yeah,
Nunn.
that was probably the worst one. He split sets with Nunn and S2J,
Yeah,
and even then he'd split sets. So I think it's tough to really hold those against him to like a really high degree.
yeah. It was just like primarily Juan's attendance that put him over Leffen for me, and then I just felt like J Mooks. I didn't really think about winning tournaments as meaning that much. Maybe I should have.
Mm-hmm.
As like someone who actively competes, I do not think like winning a tournament is definitely hard, but things can definitely go right. So you win a tournament, and there are definitely brackets that could like go wrong, and then you're just out at like whatever placing instead of winning,
Mm-hmm.
and it just feels like more reliable to look at people's head to heads to me. But
Mhm.
I could see how people might have had Juan above J Mook if they're like, oh yeah, he won a national or whatever.
And did so beating Cody, right? Like
Yeah,
if he didn't beat Cody to get there, I don't know what path he would have needed, but like I think that would have been like not as good as an argument.
yeah,
But yeah, you're not on trial here. I think that HBox at 3 is a valid pick. I think the HBox at 4 is a valid pick. And hey, HBox at 5, me and Anook, old Edwin buddy and I, we're together on this one. Edwin, I've got some opinions on this, but right before I throw it over to you, I just think that like yeah, Krudo, I think that this kind of exemplifies the idea of why these sort of panel rankings work, and not to like try to proselytize any people who are hating on the rankings this year, but like you have a mindset and so like a criteria, I guess, that values tournament wins, or sorry, that values attendance a lot. And I think that like I have a criteria that doesn't value attendance a lot this year specifically, and I think that like basically getting to mix all these different criteria and just like the ways that people weigh things, I think it ends up working out. But Edwin Budding, what do you think about old H box, H bruv?
Yeah, I think Hbruv. Yeah, the main thing with him is like usually I'm with you, Krudo, on this, right? So like usually I like rewarding volume and I like rewarding people who attend a lot. I'm not as far as Wheat is in terms of like how he would position it in terms of like not like putting less of a premium on attendance. Like the rest of my list, I think is pretty rewarding of that. But something I would say is that I think with international players, it's always tricky. And, maybe this is admittedly a bias I have as a panelist, but I want to encourage like inclusion of international players and just kind of rewarding them for when they do really well more than weighing that equally to when they don't do so well. Like for Leffen's case, right? I think his Pound and Summit were both like not very underwhelming performances,
Mm-hmm.
kind of like the caliber of player we had known before, right? But I think winning a tournament like again within this specific time period. Apparently now he's dropping sets like hotcakes or whatever. But like within the given period of time that we had to assess everyone's results, winning a tournament over Zayn is not a small feat. That's that's something that was arguably within the given time frame one of the most impressive tournament victories of the year. So I think like given at least my willingness to be a bit more forgiving to Leffen for having spread out head to heads, but having a very impressive, winning one on the best player in the world during this time period, winning a very big major tournament over him.
Mm-hmm.
You know, getting in addition to being a national international player, also getting COVID. I did think that I did want to be a bit more forgiving to Leffen for not having attended as much, given sort of like the circumstances. And I also just think that even discounting that, his high is one of the highest highs that any player has had this year. So, you know, I think Hungry Bucks hasn't beat volume in tournaments attended. Um, but I'm willing to be a bit more forgiving to Leffen because of circumstances that stop him from attending tournaments and or as many tournaments as he would like to.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that like his peak accomplishment of winning Battle of BC over over Zayn, like it's legitimately like one of the most impressive one of the top 3 tournament victories in this time
I
span. Your top four.
Edwin took
right?
the words right out of my mouth. I literally think that is one of the three most impressive runs that we've seen, and like obviously people talk about what winning a major means, and we don't really quantify like what the different levels of winning a major. I think Zayn winning Genesis is one of the most impressive things we saw this year. I think IBW winning Summit is very impressive. But honestly, I put Leffen winning Battle of BC right up there. He really showed confidently that people like Amsa, who he lost to earlier, people like HBox, who always are scary, and people like Zayn, who like formerly currently number one on the ranking, but like formerly just like this dominant number one. Yeah, he was really able to show that not only is he able to beat them, he's able to do it in pretty like emphatic fashion. So I think that was definitely something for him. And you mentioned the COVID thing. Yeah, I mean, I did say this year, because of COVID and travel and just like wandering into venues after you were told that you might have COVID without a mask. I definitely think that emphasis on attending a ton of events was less important to me. Um, and yeah, like I've said this in this podcast, I think Leffen's number one in the world because, and I'll keep saying that until he goes to something because right now I don't have to worry about
He's gonna
yeah,
lose to Moki for 9th or something.
yeah, but until he goes to anything, I don't have to worry about it. So right now, I can just say he's number one in the world. But his spread against everyone is so good. But you're right. You know, when you look at his actual results, I think it's really good that the people who he lost to ended up being really good. Lod and Amsa. That's very helpful for him to have those losses. Jmook as well. Yeah, it does seem something like yeah, I mean, in a year, I can go through it. I don't need to go through it. I honestly, I don't hold his Genesis DQ against him like a lot of people do. I think it's a really awkward situation that people don't run into, and I think we'll go like, oh, he just got a puppy. But like, I'm willing to understand that is, you know, there's a lot more to that situation than just like, oh, okay, biggest term of the year, I'm going to just get a puppy right before it. So I don't hold that against him. I know that some people might, so that might affect their ranking. But yeah, you're right. COVID, flight issues. Like if he only attended these three events and then just said, fuck you guys, I'm going to get like third at Guilty Gear at Evo, I would just be like, okay, I probably put him fifth. But it was very clear that he wanted to attend stuff. He wanted to go to CEO. He was signed up for CEO. He got COVID. It happened to be back to back to back weekends where the next two majors were right after CEO as well. So any COVID stuff probably also held over for that. And then this was not a part of the ranking period, but the fact that he was really, really trying hard to go to Phantom, it showed me that he is not done. It's not like he only attended these three things because he didn't care. So I was maybe looking into that maybe more than I should have. But yeah, I think that those alone puts Leffen at 4 for me. I think we all agree Jmook at 3. I think there's ways that you can view HBox at 3. I think that's fair. I think I would not do it myself, but if someone puts Leffen at 3, I think there's a path to it, and I love that person for doing it. And then, yeah, I don't think there's too much that we need to talk about when it comes to Zayn and IBDW. But if you guys want to, should we be so bold as to maybe make some predictions about what we see at the end of the year? Is that too crazy? Is that too crazy?
It's not that crazy. It's
Yeah.
very, very
Who do
normal.
you think ends the year number 1?
Jmook.
Because Jmook.
He's gotta win a major, man. I don't know.
No,
if
he doesn't win a major, but he's number 1. I'm
He's
here.
just
for
got
it.
amazing head-to-heads.
What if he just like does not win a major, but he ends up positive on one by the end of the
Okay,
year?
yeah, I'd give it to him. What if? Yeah, actually, okay, I like that more because I was thinking he just like keeps losing to HBox, and it just has like diminishing returns. So he's like incredibly positive on everyone else. He's like 5-1 with Zayn. He's just like 7-1 with Leffen, but he's like 0-12 with HBox. But like 0-12 is not that different than 0-7, right? So like it just becomes this thing where it only could get another loss can only add so much. But I like this idea where somehow he pulls it out. Yes, he's positive on everyone, and yet somehow does not win a tournament.
Yeah, the more I think about it, it's pretty hard for that to happen. But yeah, I feel like him winning a tournament over
Oh,
H
it's
Fox would not be that ridiculous. Like,
no. We very almost saw it.
yeah, like not to he definitely didn't lose because of the controller thing, but like it was pretty telling that he is due for something after he like that controller thing happens. He loses the set because he has to reset his like
Yeah.
80% lead, and then he bracket resets and goes up 2-0 anyway. Just like completely unfazed.
Yeah, like we're gonna see something from him. I think that you're right. It's telling that probably his hardest match that he's had to face this year, his hardest opponent, is the one that he did that against. Yeah, it's very possible to see a tournament where maybe like Big House Grand Finals could realistically be him versus Zayn, and what we've seen recently, maybe that we would put that in the favor of him. He's has set wins over Cody and Leffen and Plup, and even though I think Leffen could end up beating him, and we've seen Cody and Plup take sets from him. Who knows, right? It's always possible. So yeah, I think that he's a good call for someone who can end up winning a major. But number one's crazy. How many tournaments does he win to get number one? Oh,
Even if he just wins one
even
and
if,
just like
oh,
does
Just one.
well,
He
I
wins
don't
like
know.
main stage or
all right.
something.
I like this.
I'm
I like
really
this,
hesitant.
Krudo.
Him versus Amsa, I'm like fairly certain. Him versus Amsa and him versus Slug are like the only two matchups in the top 20 where I'm like, oh, this could get really unlucky.
Dude, Krudo, you're so right. I listed out like the top 3 scariest opponents for people at one point during some like DM conversation that I can't even remember, and everyone's just like in the top 10, and I listed out J Mooks, and I was like, I think it's HBox Amsa Slug. It's like, unfortunately, I think that it's HBox Amsa Slug. I'd love to see this happen. What tournament does he win? Which one is it?
Shine, maybe Shine, Big
Okay.
House. I'm pretty willing to say Shine. I could see him winning like a summit because he actually has had really close calls with people before top eights, even though he has managed to not get upset. Like
Yeah.
we reasonably should have lost to Josh Man at whatever Canada tournament that was at. Like Smash Daddy was looking pretty good. Also, him versus Fiction. A tournament without Fiction seems good for him. I would feel like him versus Fiction could be pretty bad. He didn't seem the greatest versus Falco last year after he lost to Frenzy.
Mhm.
And then just like watching him play, he just didn't seem amazing. But he hasn't really played against a good Falco player on land this year. But
Kurt, I gotta be honest, you're not selling me, but I love it.
yeah,
Everything you're saying is making me think that
Yeah,
it's the
Krudo, I
wrong
gotta be
pick.
honest. I think if he runs to like you Spark or face roll or like bent or like one of the Sheiks or something, I feel like that could randomly be scary. If
that
only
is completely coin flipped, and it's not his fault. That matchup is
yeah, you
cringe.
know what I mean? Like I
Yeah,
can't really like we haven't seen him in that yet.
he's
I,
just so consistent versus Fox and Marth. It is just like it's hard for me to think he wouldn't win a tournament
Dude,
because
how
I
will
could.
Wizzy do against Jmook? That I feel like that's just such a wild like if I saw a set of theirs and like no matter how like if Wizzy just like 3-0'd him super anticlimatically, I'd be like, well, okay, I guess Wizrobe's just gonna be hard for Jmook. And if Jmook just completely destroyed Wizrobe, I'd be like, all right, yeah, that makes sense. Jmook doesn't lose to Falcon. I have zero clue how that set will turn out.
I want to see it.
Yeah, I feel like it could really go either way. Like I want to say Jamie could just win, but
He's more in
he does.
practice, right? So you would think that, or at least competitive shape. So you would think.
Yeah, but then like that set with Mech at Summit was like pretty competitive, and I feel like Mech is probably one of the closest Falcons that's like decent to playing like Wizrobe, and that set was really close. And Mech has like 1/4 the punish game Wizzy has. Wizzy's weird though. Wizzy's just like I could see people who beat Wizzy like almost never losing the Wizzy for their entire life, and maybe he's just one of them. He's just like such a consistent style.
I want to see it really bad because before we got to see a lot of Jmook, back when we maybe had the idea that he was going to have like a sophomore slump after Genesis, I was thinking like, oh, Wizzy would be really hard. Like it might not seem like it, but I think Wizzy would be really hard for him. And then he's shown a lot of stuff, and now I kind of am not as sure. I do think that the Wizzy that we saw at Smash Factor is like not the Wizzy that we're going to continue to see.
Yeah. Agreed.
I mean, Meds was like fucking amazing. But like still, I think that we're going to see him continue to improve, get back to his old self. One thing is that like the mech set was super close. The S2J set was close in the beginning. I do think that there is this like weird thing that we've seen from him with Falcon, where like it takes a second to get his bearings. Um, and I think he reversed 3-0'd mech, and then he lost game 1 versus S2J, got 2 stocked, and the rest of the games didn't look like the rest of the games got less close as they went on. Um,
That
so
happened versus Gatsu too at Smash World Tour. He like reversed
yeah,
3-0 Gatsu and
yeah,
then
you're
four stocked
right.
him by game 5. Yeah.
So I think it's and I think he just started on that point versus none. Like I don't think he
Yeah.
needed to get there. So if he has something like that where he doesn't have to get to that point, because I think if you need to get to that point versus Wizzy, then it's kind of stacked against you. But that's interesting to see. Edwin Budding, Zane is number 1 at the summer. Who is your number 1 pick for the year?
I said Zane before SmashCon for our like big roundtable. God, I really don't want to say HBox.
The fact that you're thinking it means that that's the right answer.
Well, the thing is, it's like if the thing preventing HBox from winning before, it was Zane.
It was Zane and Cody.
It was
Guess
Zane
who he
and
just
Cody, and
beat
he won each
recently?
of his last sets against them. Now again, I don't think that means that like, oh, he won each of his last sets against them, he's going to start destroying them now. Like that's not how these things work. I think, but I think even going competitive with those, if he maintains being dominant over Jmook and like has the head to head against Mango, even if it does seem like Mango beat him, even if Mango beat him in the last 2 sets, like that's a great asset. But you know what? No, I'm sticking with my guns here. I think Zane can do it, and I think Zane can reach number 1 because I think if he can slightly improve in the matchups that he was already, he was previously untouchable in, and I think with Mango playing a more prominent role potentially in top 8s, like especially with Wizrobe coming back, like if Zane can start drawing like more spacey heavy brackets and like Mango starts taking care, like I don't think this will happen. I mean, like I think a version of this will happen where like Mango will take care of opponents who could potentially be scary for Zane, and then Zane will just like play him, and then like maybe I know he just lost their set, but like I'm not willing to say that Zane is just gonna always is not the favorite against Hungry Rocks if they play again, right? So it's like maybe he beats a Fox or something in winners quarters. He gets a Spaceys bracket, then he plays Hungry Rocks in winners finals and plays Mango in grands, and like he does that 2 more times, wins 2 majors, ends the year at number 1 with 4 majors and one and the most important one in Genesis, arguably. So I'm gonna stick with Zane.
I think that's a great pick. I think your heart pick is correct. Unfortunately, HBox. No, for my pick. I've talked about this player a lot. It's a Fox player who has shown that he doesn't really have the Marth issue anymore. It is someone who I have a cordial relationship with. Been lucky enough to get to speak to them at events. I'm of course talking about Cody Schwab, IBDW.
I think that's a good pick. I think he's the best player in the world right now.
I think he's the best player in the world right now. No, I do think that I was kind of leading you guys into thinking that I was going to say Leffen. And it's kind of a coin toss for me right now for Leffen and Cody in terms of who I think is going to end the year number 1. Leffen, I was able to talk a big game about because he's not currently attending things, so I don't have to worry about his like actual chances to lose to Moki or anything. But I honestly do think that if he's able to avoid these matches, I think that he's got an incredible matchup spread at the top. We've not seen him versus Mango. We've not seen him versus Cody. So those could be up for debate. But when it comes to HBox, we've seen him do really well. Still does really well versus Zane. I'm willing to say that he's able to beat Jmook. Went really close in a tournament that didn't seem great for him. What we saw versus Amsa, and I'm willing to say that him versus Plup is probably something that I'd favor him for. I really do think that his matchup spread at the top is really good for him. And if he makes his way to winners semis or winners finals or grand finals of any tournament, he's probably going to face a matchup that is not that scary for him. And that's a great thing. Now, the issue is that he has 1 tournament under his belt, and he didn't go to SmashCon because he just got 3rd at Evo. I should mention that again. He's not going to Shine. And although he's talking about how he's about going to go to a bunch of events, I do kind of wonder, like, what events? Are you going to Riptide? Are you going to like LTC, the second LTC of the year? Are you going to? I guess you're going to Big House. I guess you're going to Summit. There's of course a secret tournament that has been leaked in our Discord by the guy who's running it, but I might not be mine to leak. There's the tournaments at the end of the year. There's main stage, so there's a lot to go to.
Rotten Dam.
There's Rotten Dam. Well, so that's what I kind of want to bring up is that I think he's got a good shot at winning the stuff that he goes to. And I think Rotten Dam is one that I think I would favor him for right now, even though it's got Zane and Cody. I think that Zane and Cody will be a little jet lagged and that they're just going to they're going to go to a situation where I don't know, they're going to be playing in a, I don't even know what situation it would be, but there's no VIP room and they're going to walk up to Knuckles and go, Zane and I really aren't having a good time. we were playing friendlies and someone sat down and asked if they could join the rotation. He's like, that really messed with me. and I think that the hospitality in Europe will be different. Whatever it is, I think that Rotterdam he will win. But yeah, it's really just he needs to attend stuff. If he goes to Big House, if he goes to Summit, if he goes to I was a nerd and I thought of all the tournaments he could go to. I think it's likely that he goes to around 5 for the rest of the year. I think it's possible he goes to 7 to 8. So in that thing, I think that it's really likely that he could win 3 or 4 of those if he goes to a lot. And I think that if he ends up winning, plus Battle BC 4 or 5 tournaments, I think that's open for him. But it really is him having to add on to his resume all at the end of the year. So I think Cody's probably the safer answer of someone who has the answers right now. Maybe doesn't have the answers long term. We don't really know. We don't know if he's able to beat Zane every time. We don't know if this HBox loss is something that could even fall into HBox's favor a third of the time. That could change his major victories path. But yeah, I would say short term, if Cody can take the short term success to the end of the year, then I think it's Cody. If Leffen's able to use his long term success, which I think he has more than almost anyone else in Smash, if he's able to take this long term success and actually go to events, I think it's Leffen. So that is my very long winded way of saying that. I like the fact that we picked all different people, and there's still more to pick. Right, the fact that none of us picked H God. I think that you can go further in all of these. So it's just an insane year. Maybe Amsa makes number 1. Who knows?
I think it's a little late for him, but you never know.
Speaking of a little late, we are
3 majors in a row.
True. Hey, who knows? Dude, do you know what it is? We just passed SmashCon. Do you remember what happened in 2017? In 2017, HBox lost SmashCon to Mango and Pluppy got 4th or whatever.
Yeah, we were all sleeping on him.
Tafo was literally telling me, well, he told us. It was not me personally, but he told us at the time that there was this air around him where everyone was kind of going, he should take a break. People were thinking of walking up to them Juan, you look tired. Why don't you skip Shine? But no one did. And what happened is he won Shine and he won every tournament that year. So it is possible. And especially because that year was not open like this one was. 2017 was a shut case because Armada won every tournament up until
no one was even considering the possibility of HBox winning 6 tournaments in a row.
So we'll see. Maybe AMSA will and everything. But yeah, you're talking about how it might be too late for AMSA. Speaking of late, we're running kind of to the end of the show. Krudo, there is one thing that I want to get your opinion on. We in my head, we were going to talk 20 minutes on SmashCon, and we ended up talking an hour. So we might have to truncate this just a little bit. But we've heard the call for an algorithm, specifically from people who think that they're ranked low. It's not anyone who's ranked what they think they should be ranked who are asking for an algorithm, but it is something that is in the ether. We are speaking about this. This is a conversation. And one thing, I mentioned this on Radio Melee, props to H God, because most people, when they say they're ranked low or seated low, they just say it. Most people don't go, I should be ranked above this guy. And he did. He said, I'm ranked low. I should be ranked above Jmook. And not only that, I'm ranked above Leffen, but I'm actually too close to him.
It's also
He's like,
funny because he was like, I beat Jmook all the time. Why is he ranked above me? It's like, dude, you're complaining about being barely ranked above a guy who beats you.
yeah, Leffen beat you all the time. Why is he below you, man? It's a mystery how these things work, I guess. But it's so funny that like Leffen, who we all agree had a really good year, he's ranked above him, and he's like, this ranking sucks because I'm close to him. This peon shouldn't be in my, like, I shouldn't be able to even see this guy. And he's right in my rearview mirror. But regardless, we're yeah, enough joking around. We've got Kyle Krudo here. We've got to go serious time. Krudo, maybe not an algorithm. Maybe you don't have opinions on that. But there are talks about what needs to change in the rankings. So do you think anything needs to change? And what important changes do you think could happen or should happen?
Yeah, I feel like so I don't know enough about the algorithm to say one thing or the other about it. I feel like the one like pro of it is that it will use a consistent criteria, whatever that is. How we determine that, I don't know, but I feel like that's like you guys talked about it as being a plus, honestly, or everyone did, and I kind of think it was like worse that we have all these people interpreting this panel in whatever way they choose. So it ends up with like really weird rankings, and it's complete RNG for a couple people. Like how many of the panelists have this methodology for doing this, and how many have like this with like locals or attendance or whatever. I just feel like more defined ideas of how people should try to rank players would be good. Because I feel like it's a little too broad right now. So I messaged Pete Tass and I was like, all right, so what are these SoCal things? Do I count as like a regional or a weekly? It's like, oh yeah, well, we might as well count the new Mang as like a regional, and then the other things are like Lawless or whatever is a weekly. And then you look at like who's at the new Mang, and you look at people who are at like pre-locals for tournaments and shit, and it's just like the quality of players is way different. So it feels a little inconsistent in how you define what tournament is what, and I think that's no good. That's like the main thing.
So the concrete change here is that in the ballot, which has really been open ended for forever. You're right on that. It is very broad. In the ballot, what do you think it should say? It should say like, here are the criteria. Like what change specifically do you think it's made?
Each tournament should be like, I think every tournament that counts or should be used for data should be actually listed. It's probably a little bit more work, and that's unlucky for whoever has to do that. But I think that would help a lot as a
Would it be
start.
part of like a league or say a circuit of sorts, a unified structure in the scene? Would you say?
Well, I think that's a big conclusion, right? Because everyone
Yeah.
says like the tournament should start and everyone should know already how big it is. And it's like, okay, well, you are asking for something that is like logistically that is structure that we don't currently have and are not close to. And that like I don't even know if we want that if we end up making it.
Also, the
Considering
people
how many
calling
DPs
for it,
we have.
let's not beat around the bush. The people calling for are the ones that basically have a massive impact on that structure, right? So like if a tournament is trying to become like that tournament that everyone wants to go to, it is ultimately up to like a group of 15 people that effectively determine how prestigious a tournament can really be, and that will draw all the talent there. So it's
Well,
a bit of a catch-22.
you know that we're gonna there's something that's gonna be announced later that should be happening next week that might delve into this type of take more. But you know that like I brought up the idea of requiring one international tournament to get ranked, and then hosting like melee stats regionals in international waters. And it's just like, damn, this venue fee is really high. But I guess I gotta pay it. I want to get ranked, and I don't want to fly all the way to Europe to do it. And we're just raking it in. We're like,
We're off the coast of Havana, of course.
yeah, we're off the coast of Havana, and we're just like, come on, Swift, you gotta get ranked, don't you? You have to come to this melee stats event. But yes, Krudo, sorry, I guess we're all getting a little tired. We're getting a little silly. I think you make a good point, and I don't mean to like criticize you, and I want to hear more about it, but I do think that anything like this deserves to hear more about it. So what else? Is it just that? Do you want like concrete kind of
I think defining what events,
definitions? Yeah.
yeah, I think that's really important. I think
Agree.
just like an idea of how you're supposed to think about activity would be good, and like use that to separate
Mhm.
things. Like I don't really know how you would even clearly define that is the problem, but it's just like
Yeah.
I had Leffen at 5 or wherever I had Leffen compared to you guys because of that, and
4.
it just feels like that, yeah. And that inconsistency comes from that, but I also don't know how they change that. I don't think people on the ballot should have, or yeah, people on the ballot should have one probably. We all rank me the same place, so I actually didn't
True.
do that bad.
True.
Higher than where I was though, but
True.
I don't know. I like definitely saw some people with ballots who ranked themselves a lot higher than I'd expect, and I'd imagine that was like the outlier result that got cut off for them. I feel like that would be a good stat to look at, just like what outlier results from on a specific player were from the actual player themselves. It's
Uh-huh.
like if like Zuppy or I'd rank myself like 12 if that's me cutting myself off, or like Pipsqueak might have ranked himself really high too. Who knows? But
Well, I think this type of stuff it's not, maybe it is. I don't know. I don't think I follow Practical Task because I was mad that he like I immediately know that he won't follow me back because he does the shitty thing where he only follows like I'm only following 17 people. Ha ha ha.
It's
So
a
I
good
don't actually
podcast
follow him.
impersonation. I'm only
I don't follow
following
you either, my man.
people.
And Krudo, I think I don't follow you. I'm just realizing I follow my man JD, who is our producer on the ones and twos. So at least I follow someone here. Um, but I don't follow Practical Tasks, so I might not see every tweet he makes. Usually they get on my timeline from likes and retweets anyway, so I feel like I get the gist of everything he says. So I don't know how often he says this in public settings. But yeah, I mean, if someone has a ballot that is like clearly out of like left field to a point where it seems like you can't even mistake that, like you are like doing it wrong with the intent of that, then I think they just would get thrown out in that situation. He said that before. And
okay,
also there's internal stuff that like outliers will kind of be shaved down
yeah,
within the ranking. But yeah, I think you make good points, and I believe I started to hear stuff about people saying, well, maybe top players who get ballots shouldn't rank themselves, and that gets figured out. I think I started hearing that this year, even from like internally. So that could be a change. Uh, can we mention something that I brought up earlier? You don't have to name names. Do you know were any people like, maybe copying's the wrong word, but there's a lot of people who like do their ballots together. Have you seen that?
yeah. I definitely have gotten a lot of DMs in the past, and got a lot of DMs this time. Like, oh, where'd you have this guy? Where'd you have this
Yeah.
guy? But then you're just like people like, oh, can I see your list to compare to mine? And it's like, what are they changing at that point? I don't know. Because you can change it. Like, even after you type yes in that box, you can definitely just change it until the day
Mhm.
that it's submitted. So, you definitely heard of that happening. I don't know if there's a good way to prevent that other than like a code of honor, but
Yeah. I think that's
people,
kind of impossible. But one thing I brought up on my good old Radio Melee, I guess. Literally, they had me on yesterday. Literally, only talked about rankings. So this is something that I will be repeating myself on a few things. There's not like a forum right now to talk about rankings from people who have ballots, other than like straight up DMing people. The way that Melee Stats does it. So this year, I think it was just me, Edwin, and Ambi. But if more Melee Stats affiliated people have ballots, we will go over it like this, where like we all do it on our own, and then we all get together to look them over and then talk about it. And I do think it's less of like us making our ballots together and more of just like spot checking stuff. And usually when we have this, like Amy and I had it, I'd go, okay, explain blank for me. Like explain why you put blank at 33. And then he would say it. And then if his explanation, like if he felt justified, then he wouldn't change it. But sometimes he'd go, huh, why did I have them at 33? And then it's just like a sanity check type of way that I don't think you're not like making it based off what some other people do. So I'd be interested in the future. Maybe there's a Discord of people who have ballots and can like freely have conversations about it, or like say, hey, like I'm having trouble with 21 through 28. Like what did you guys value here? Because I honestly don't think that like conferring with other people is a big issue. But if you are like conferring with other people while you're making it, and you're just kind of like, yeah, no, you're right. Like Chem should be 38th or whatever.
Or if you're streaming it for content, right? I
Oh
mean,
yeah. I've
Can't really
definitely
do anything about that.
we've definitely seen chat go like, no, dude, this guy's really good. He's actually like 48th, not 58th. And then they're like, okay, just change it. So we've seen some things, but yeah, you're right. I don't think there's anything to do. Yeah, I don't know. I'm interested going forward to see what kind of changes they're making. PG's always been pretty good about like understanding criticism and understanding what is valid and what's not. So it'll be interesting to see that. But yeah, let's move on. Krudo, you're a working man. You've told me you're one of the few people in the top 20 who actually have a job. So I will try to get out of your hair.
I'm off
Relatively
tomorrow
quickly.
and tonight.
Oh,
But
okay,
yeah,
never
you
mind.
take
Oh,
We're
your
nice.
going, dude. We're going. Edwin, you can go to sleep. Krudo and I are gonna go to 4 a.m. No, we've got something here. We've got patron questions. These are questions that you're a patron, aren't you?
Yeah.
So these are questions that people like you could be asking us. And let me go first. So this one is from Question Superstar, Chic Superstar, Top 64 Genesis. This is from Seal, SSB Seal. What are some of the biggest innovations that have changed the Chic meta in the last few years?
I feel like the main thing that Jamie really showed and just people have been getting better at is just all the defensive tech in general that lets you just. There was like a big issue where all the Sheik players would play against whatever level of Fox players and they'd lose to literal spam. And I feel like people are getting a lot better at interacting with that. They're getting a lot better at like crouching. They're getting better at doing option selects with like a wave dash, or like people are more intentional about shield grabbing in the corner now, because if you shield grab in the corner against Fox, like the worst thing that happens is you get shine and you go to ledge after. So it's not even that bad. It's like really good risk reward for you to just like mash shield grab there. People are getting better at like sliding off up air. J-Mook won that set against Leffen by like teching the up smash in the corner and grabbing him.
Yeah.
I just feel like all the defensive stuff is making a really big improvement in that. People are getting like better at edge guarding, and J-Mook is like the best at tech chasing we've ever seen. Spark's really good. Facer's really good. But I don't feel like that's making as big of an improvement as just they just don't lose to random moves as much anymore, because just having a really high base of execution people have to play against you, I feel like goes a long way.
Mm-hmm. That's very fair. Edwin, do we have another question?
Yeah, this one is from Cypher03, aka Jesse Wall from the bottom of Smash
Oh, shit.
Mountain. If you could rewrite one Sheik technique to be named after you, what would it be?
That one's a crazy question. I was trying to think about it.
What's the Krudo stall or the
Yeah.
Krudo?
I feel like
it-
I do the wall jump on Battlefield, and I think it's on FOD the most, where you can do a needle turnaround and you grab ledge instantly on the way up from that. And then if they go up, or if they grab ledge, you just get air dodge up, and it's not bad at all. That doesn't even have a name right now, but it's like you wall jump, instant needle turnaround, and you grab on the way up, and I feel like that would probably be something like that. I don't know. She doesn't have a lot of character specific tech, so it's hard to say.
You've got a not. You're right. So you have a lot of stuff that doesn't have names, and you've got a lot of stuff that's not named after someone. I think you've got the two big stalls, Shino and Sammy. But honestly, like double poof, that's the best you can do. Call it like the Krudo blast or something.
That could be like the Spark blast. Spark is the craziest at double poof or like running off and poofing. The run off poof is called the Vanish Glide, and that could definitely be like the Spark Slam or something utterly just nonsensical. And I think it would catch on pretty fast. Yeah, people that know that's called the Vanish Glide is probably pretty small too.
You know what a chillin' dash is?
I do. That's
Dude.
the flying shine, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I tried super hard one day when I was just playing on my CRT to do it with Falco, and I was like, I know it's not possible, but I will get something. And yeah, I tried like this insane thing where I'd like, okay, like I'll get a bunch of speed by like I don't even know. I had this whole insane setup and got like the tiniest baby one and felt so happy. But yes, I think that you are in a unique position. You're top 20 in the world. You might as well steal something. And Edwin will write up about it in Monday Morning Marth, and he'll be like, we of course all know the famous technique, the the Krudo crunch, and then just like kind of gaslight people into believing that that's a thing. So whatever it is, let me know, and we're willing to help you name it after
Get the
yourself.
ball rolling on that. All right. I'll keep
And
that in
then
mind.
we've got another question here. So this one is not about Sheik, but it is from a Sheik. This is from Chi. Can you explain to the public your position on how you could defeat a kangaroo in hand-to-hand combat?
Okay. So I feel like the main thing to think about when fighting the kangaroo is just the disparity in the upper and lower body, to my understanding. You just want to stay outside of like one jump kick range.
Okay.
So as long as you can stay outside of that and just like it's like moving around. If you pick a good timing to get an actual hit on it or a grab on it, I would just so the whole thing starts from avoiding the kick. And then once you avoid the kick, you just need to find a way onto the kangaroo to like hit its face. I can't imagine its face is that strong if you hit it in, like the nose. But even if you can like get on its back and just mount it, even if it's like 300 pounds, I'm like a 180-pound or whatever individual, it will not be able to handle me on its back and just take it down like that. In the water, you're probably fucked though, but that is how that goes. It will simply drown me, and I'll have nothing to do.
So it's just bubble theory.
Yeah, exactly. Spot on.
Well, I'm glad that your years of playing HBox have given you given you some survival techniques.
This hypothetical like irrationally upsets me. I don't know why the idea of defeating a kangaroo in hand-to-hand combat is so upsetting to me.
You know what? It did seem like a really fun question, and then Krudo, you gave an amazing answer.
Yeah,
But
I
I
thought
did
about
get
it a
like
lot.
I did get more and more bummed the more you talked about it. Like it became more of a realistic situation. And look, I know that like this situation is like life or death. One of you is leaving. It just was like, man, you gotta punch the kangaroo.
Yeah.
Krudo, I didn't know you were like that.
It's very unpleasant. It's an unpleasant image of Krudo just going to town on a kangaroo. I don't know if that's what I want to see.
They seem
Well,
pretty evil, to my understanding, and just like hide in the water, and then people or like animals come up to it, or people come up to it, and it just strangles them. It just drowns them. So maybe it
yeah, I
deserves to
mean,
be punched.
they've got more blood on their hands than you do. Or actually, I don't know. You
I
did
don't
say
know.
you're
He seems to have a lot of experience.
Yeah, well, he also did talk about how he loves to eat meat. No, we're coming down to the end of the show.
Can I ask one really quick question to Krudo? This is not an official Patreon question, but it's something that I have to know while I have you on the show.
Okay.
What makes Panda so difficult to fight as Sheik versus every other Fox player that you've played and beaten?
Here, wait. I also have a follow-up question. Do you think it's easier to beat Panda or easier to beat a panda?
Okay. Well, the follow-up question, I do not understand how I would even begin to damage a panda. If you give me a sword against the real panda and a GameCube controller against Brandon Aruji, I think me and the sword in the real panda works out better for me. But I feel like what makes him so hard to beat, man, he has a really realistic approach to how situations play out, and I feel like Sheik does a lot of like she just really tries to play to her good spots, so she goes to set up her spots, and he's like super aware of that, and he's good at playing around that. I feel like he delays when he has to like do a reaction a really long time. I feel like most people make their decisions a while before you really need to. They just see someone doing this and they're like, all right, I'm gonna do this, and then if it ends up being a like mix up and that they don't even realize they're fucked, they just get grabbed. But he delays that. Hello.
Did we lose you?
Okay.
Yeah,
Okay,
Yeah.
maybe
So my internet cable's loose, so that happens. But yeah, he delays his decision a long time. He has a good idea of what she wants to do. He's really good at just understanding how people think too, and I feel like that goes a long way. Not to like myself included, Sheik players definitely are more prone to like spamming certain options that they have seen success with like over and over. Outside of like a Fox spamming there, it's like okay, the Sheik player will mash F tilt after this SDI here, and he really abuses you for doing like spam options like that. And I think he uses full hop really well. Cody Schwab's pretty good at it too. I think him and Cody Schwab play the
Maybe.
matchup pretty similarly.
Yeah, I think you're right. Maybe IBW is good at that matchup.
Yeah. Yeah. Well,
If anyone could beat IBW, they must be pretty damn good.
yeah, they have to be incredibly raw. But other than that, I don't know. He's definitely. I feel like his expertise aren't just limited to Sheik. It just shows because he's beaten me like 200 times or whatever. He is definitely a player where it's like, if you look at his losses outside of tipped off, he literally just lost to like really good, just like Falco players or IBDW or whoever else. So he will definitely just perform a lot better as time goes on. I think he's good against Peach. I think he's not even that good against Marth, and he won his or he beat John Coe at the end of last year.
Yeah.
That was a pretty good set. I think
He's got a play style that seems I mean, obviously, you're right. He picks his space as well. He's very smart, but it does seem like suffocating in a way when you watch it actually
yeah,
happen. And I think that when it works, it works really well. And then you see him play like Ginger or something. It's like, oh, okay. It's like when it doesn't work, it is kind of a all or nothing type thing. But I mean, hey, you've you might have heard this. Do you know how I refer to him? How we refer to him around here? How I refer to him probably an annoying amount of times on CEO commentary. There's one specific emote. It's
zany
one
face.
global
Yeah,
emoji. It's the
I talk
zany.
about that all the time with him. That shit is so funny.
It's
It
true.
definitely is a zany face.
Yeah,
We
we
were
and I have been saying this since
dude,
like
it was
2018.
Genesis. It was Genesis. Well, it might have been before it, but yeah, we were watching him. The lamest way that you can watch it, which we were in the hotel in Oakland watching it on stream in our hotel room. We were watching him beat Axe, and it was zany face the entire time. He'd play incredibly smart, and then he'd get a one stock lead, and then just like he's in the corner, I'll just run in there.
Yeah.
So you're completely right. I think he's a really great player, and not surprising to me that he jumped up from where he was only a couple years ago. We're running I we've got long episodes, so this is not close to our longest, but I do kind of want to get you out of here. I want to get Edwin out of here. It's past his bedtime. But before we go, we do have one thing. We've been talking about Melee for over 2 hours at this point. In our last segment, officially unnamed, but unofficially referred to as Touch and Grass, is kind of a segment where we talk about stuff that's going on in our lives that is not Melee related. You know, we can talk for 2 hours about Melee, but maybe it's good for just like a couple minutes to talk about something that doesn't have to do with that old GameCube game. So I'm going to go first. I'll give you guys some time to think. And this one, this past week, I have been watching something that we talked about outliers in terms of data. This is probably the outlier for me. I don't really watch anime. I've probably watched like 5, definitely, yeah, maybe 6, but definitely a single digit number. And I've began watching again for third or fourth time Yu Yu Hakusho. Just great show. But I will not use that as my touching grass segment because I'm going to use another thing. I kind of talked about this last time, I think, which is maybe a cop out. But I got to spend a lot of time with my family this weekend. Some good, some bad. Like I wasn't able to attend SmashCon for stuff, but I don't need to get into that. One thing that I want to get into is my sister and I, big age gap, but we are very close. And sometimes it's hard to always get to see her. She's got kids. So we were hanging out at a family function a couple months ago, and we were like, we need to go see a concert, because I was going off about all the concerts that I was seeing. So we went through and we picked one specifically, and then we like marked on the calendar, and I bought the tickets and this whole thing. So I just got to do that this past Friday. I went to see Fleet Foxes, which is like a folky,
Yeah, I'm
rocky,
familiar with Fleet Foxes. Yeah, they're good.
dreamy harmony, like
Yeah, they're good.
very, very like a band that I didn't even think I loved when they were around when I was in high school, and yet incredibly nostalgic for me. So my sister loved them when they came out. I loved them when they came out. So we went to go see them. Uh, very good show. We got like to this beautiful venue, and we got tickets in the back. And then there was like a guy there who was just like, "Oh yeah, we've have like more seats that we haven't sold, so you can get a free upgrade." So we got like nice seats, and just this like incredible venue, and like every single song they played was it was just like the show that you wanted to see if you were a fan of that band. So that was a really great experience. And then like the entire time, my sister apparently was like talking about it, like the whole weekend. So I will say that it's going to see Fleet Foxes with my sister, great experience. And she messaged me this past week about seeing another band, and I was like, okay, well, you know I'm a front row freak. This one's general admission. If you're willing to go to front row with me, you can go. Other than that, yeah, maybe not. I ain't no second row sucker. I'm a front row freak. Um, Edwin, what about yourself? What have you gotten into this past week?
Well, like I've been mostly just kind of keeping to myself. I want to mention two things that are coming
Cool.
up that are pretty exciting. One of my best friends, some of you might know him in Smash, PD Walnuts, is getting
Mm.
married this upcoming weekend. So I'm gonna go see him. Just like super happy. We've known each other for a really long time, like since getting into Smash together. I think I've known him for like 7 years at this point, which is kind of crazy to say. I'm just like very happy for him. We're just like really excited. A bunch of other like Yukon people are going to be there, so it's going to be great seeing everyone again, and then seeing most of them again the week after at Shine. So it's going to be great, sort of with both of those
Hey,
people.
hey, smash.
Oh fuck! He's a smasher. That's right. Uh, football
I
season.
I let you have it when you were just talking about the wedding, but the second you brought up Shine,
Yeah, I mean, other than that, I've been reading a ton about football again. Listeners to the show know how avidly I follow American football. It's one of the things that I follow as much as, if not more than Smash. I'm a huge sucker for the for American football, following news around the NFL and stuff like that. I will say, it's been kind of interesting following the Patriots off season and like getting caught up on everything and like and catching up on news there
and
because
what scandals this year? What did that old dog Robert Kraft do this time? Wait, they like used the team plane to what did they do? Was the team plane used for?
well, well, I wasn't even referring to. It was used for something ice related, which is
Okay, all right,
probably
that's what I
horrible.
thought.
But
They
no,
like they
the thing
loaded
I
up
was
the
going to bring
Patriot
up is
team
that
plane
the
with ice.
Patriots the Patriots basically re-signed our old defensive coordinator, but there's like controversy because our offensive coordinator left, but they're having the old defensive coordinator occasionally play call in training camp and in preseason, but he's splitting play calling duties with like a bunch of other people who have jobs in other areas. So the Patriots offense is just like in complete dysfunction. There's like no order, there's no reason, no rhyme to anything. Like we have a second year quarterback. We have no idea like what the offense is going to really look like come the season. In many ways, it's like it's such an unusual situation because the Patriots weren't like this for 20 years because we always had the same QB and we had like even though the offensive coordinators were shifting, like we more or less kind of knew who was running the show. But now this is kind of like it feels like I'm watching God, this is so harsh of me, but it feels like I'm watching like a Belichick protege team. Like our head coach had all these like old coordinators and stuff. Whenever they'd coach on their own, they'd just like do something really stupid or like they'd like needlessly be rude to media or whatever, and then just like lose and be out of a job. It feels like I'm watching one of those teams, but I'm just watching the Patriots do it. So it's like, why is Matt Patricia running plays? Like, why are they doing this? Like, does any of this make sense? And it's like, wait, why are the Patriots doing this? Like, they're supposed to be good. They're just a dumpster fire of an off season. So yeah, kind of strange times in New England. It's made me more appreciative of the incredible times we had. But yeah, that's what's been dominating my last week of reading.
Kyle Krudo.
I don't know how
Hard
to
hard
break
to go
this.
after that one.
Yeah, I really I work a lot, and then I literally play melee every other minute I'm not working. Like I would probably say I work like 40 hours a week, and I play melee like 40 hours a week, 50 hours a week. Like I do the same thing pretty much every day. I go to work, I go to the gym, I play melee, I eat, I take a shower and hygiene, and that is like it. I watched a TV show for the first time in like 5 years, and
Okay.
I watched The Boys. I finished all of The
Oh
Boys in
yeah.
2 days, and I like The Boys a lot. I started watching Stranger Things also because I heard that one was good. I don't like it as much, so I'm going a lot slower, but it's still okay.
Yeah,
But
Wheat and I also watched The Boys.
I yeah, I've seen Stranger Things as well. I feel like I have you know what, if you're willing to hit me up, I've like strong opinions in the negative and the positive on both shows. I'm
Mhm.
like willing to cut each one of them down because I do think that each one of them is good. But yeah, I recently watched The Boys. I watched it when I was stuck in fucking England. So that was only this past month. So it's like definitely super fresh. And Edwin, you watched it this past you watched it like a month or two ago, right?
Yeah, I watched it at like about a month ago or like 3 weeks ago or so. I think. Yeah, for what it's worth, I really love The Boys. I think it's incredibly entertaining. I love the kind of bizarro world of it universe. I will say, I think the characters are amazing. I love the
Mm-hmm.
relationships and how they develop in the show. I think the cast is phenomenal. I don't think the writing is as smart as the show's writers seem to think it is. I think the show is a little like there's some things I think the world building's really cool. I think it's a really fun, like engrossing show. But I think like the idea of it being this like brilliant biting satire where like everything in the story plays a purpose or whatever. I don't really quite see that. I think it's more fun to see the characters talk to each other, to see how their relationships change and how like their relationships shift around like their goals. I don't think the story is particularly like tight, and I think there's a bit of mixed messaging where like the show will sometimes like the story sometimes kind of does stuff, and it's like okay, like why is the character doing this? Like this doesn't really seem to have a point or like prove anything. This is just kind of just there. But I really like The Boys nonetheless. Just a few like a lot of things like that that you kind of notice where it's like okay, like I don't think this is as smart as the writers think it is, but I don't know. Am I on the mark? Is or somewhat
So
close?
yeah, well, I think we actually didn't talk about this as much as close as we may have. Probably because I was in a different time zone than you were. But yeah, I think I agree for the most part. I do think that like their broad strokes writing, like the season arcs, I think are really good. I do think that it is a well written show. But like we agree, the world building and the characters, oh my god, I think are all great. I do I do watch it sometimes, and like the thrill of some of the stuff is gone because I'm like, oh, what are you gonna do? The worst possible thing in this situation? Oh, okay, yeah, you did the worst possible. Like the thrill of the early episodes was like, dude, you thought like these superheroes were cool. I don't know what voice this is, but like you thought they were all like, wanted to save people. Nah, they're actually horrible people, and it's like, whoa. But then when they just like always do the worst decision possible, it's like, oh yeah, okay. Oh, I wonder if Homelander is going to use his laser. Yeah, there they are. Okay, yeah. Yeah, he uses okay, he killed someone with his laser beam eyes in a situation that probably didn't necessitate it. But regardless, I do think it's really good. Honestly, do you want to hear my hot take? I think one of the most interesting characters. I might not say the most. I might hedge my bets here. I think one of the most interesting characters is MM Mother's Milk. They do not go into him. They like it's so frustrating to me in
Yeah,
seasons like
I
2 and
agree.
3, and it's just like they spend so much time on Homelander, and I think Homelander gets less interesting as they show more of him, and that he always requires like something like to do to be interesting. He requires like a larger uh plot driven thing. like he needs Stormfront, or he needs like a I guess I won't spoil, but like he needs something big to be involved with, and I think that like he's not interesting if he's not involved in something. But I'm like, dude, Frenchie and MM, and you've got all these characters who like you are showing me like glimpses of shit and not going into it. But maybe that's why I like it, because I'm only seeing the glimpses. I don't know.
You know who I really love on the show? Just last thing I'll say in the boys, since I know we can go on this forever.
We are going long, but
I actually love Starlight. She's like one of my favorite characters on TV. I think her character is just like, I think she's just like a super cool and like fascinating character to watch. I think her actress does a great job. Starlight, I think if you want to know like a really fun character and like a really likable like hero for the most part, I think or like a protagonist, I think Starlight is just like very 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 admirable and just like fun to watch.
is she the Edwin of the show? Who would you be if you were in the show?
I'd be Huey. I
Okay.
don't have power. I don't have powers for shit. I would
Who would
probably
I-
react very similarly to.
Who would I be? Am I Huey as well, or are we just all three Hueys here?
No, yeah. I mean, let's be real. We would be Hueys. What, you think I'm gonna be like Butcher? No.
Say that. I'm asking your opinion. All right, Krudo, is there any last things that you want to say on the boys before we
Maybe
formally leave?
Krudo's got Billy Butcher.
I feel like I would be Queen Maeve, but I've thought about this before too.
Probably not the option I was
Okay.
expecting you to say, but all right.
Otherwise, that is
I
all
like
I
it.
have to say.
Definitely
I like
not the most out of the. Who's the A Train?
No, we don't need to do this.
Yeah,
We need to,
sorry.
we've already spent a lot of time. Edwin, did you know last week when we were on, when we in quotations because you were on
Mhm,
for
yeah.
2% of it, I talked about Amazing Spider-Man, and I feel like I talked about it for like 2 or 3 minutes, and I was just like, yeah, if Anoke was on, we would be like at hitting the 15-minute mark.
Dude, Amazing Spider-Man. So that's the Andrew
Garfield. And I didn't
That's
even
so
I didn't
fucking
even get to
bad.
talk
Oh
about
my
Spider-Man
God.
3, which I also saw again around that time. And I will say really quickly before we get ready to leave, Spider-Man 3, not as bad as people say. It's got some good things to it, and also it's kind of one of those things where people make fun of it for being bad, but it's like, dude, that's supposed to be funny. Maybe it is like cringy, but it's like supposed to be that way. Regardless, Spider-Man 3, not as bad as people say. Amazing Spider-Man 1, useless. Amazing Spider-Man 2, garbage. And then I guess, hey, next week I'll tell you my opinions on the other ones. I'll space out all my opinions on the Spider-Man movies.
Is Spider-Man 3 the one with the evil, or where
Yeah.
he has the symbiote?
Yeah.
Okay.
And there's the jazz. It's like people love those scenes, and they're like, dude, this movie sucks. It's like, no, you're enjoying the scene. You like the scene. It's not bad. I don't know. Krudo, you've been a wonderful guest. You have been sitting through not only 30 minutes of discussion about the Patriots, the boys, and Spider-Man, but you sat through 2 hours of discussion of SmashCon and rankings, and not only that, but you've been giving wonderful insight the entire time, and you did it in an episode where Edwin had weird beeps and boops the entire time. I forgot to plug in my microphone for the majority of the show, and you had an Ethernet cable that could have gone out at any point. So it really seems like we got to the end of the show. It's a miracle that we were able to get here with at as many issues as we had. So I'm happy that you were here. Is there anywhere that people can follow you if they want to follow you anywhere?
I guess it would just be Twitter. It's just Krudo Kyle. It's my full name. I don't really use Twitter. Well, I'll scroll on Twitter, but I don't like posting on Twitter or anything. So you don't really see anything on there. But I usually just go to like a Melee tournament or 2 a month. So I'm sure someone will see me there.
You'll be at Shine?
Shine, DreamHack, Big House, the Cups,
The Cups.
possibly main stage. I'd like to go to main stage. Most likely will.
Not heard them referred to as the Cups. That's great.
Yeah,
So
whatever they are.
regardless, you are going to be easy to find if you are someone who likes to watch Melee tournaments, and that's a good thing because you have done so well this year. I'm excited to see how you're going to do in the future. So I thank you so much for being on, and onward and upward, I guess. So I want to I'm sorry. I was thinking if I should leak something. I won't. I'll save it until next week. I'm sorry, everyone. I think I'm gonna tease this last week, so it's a 2-week long tease. Sorry, but if you're a patron, we'll be able to tell you pretty soon. So, speaking of which, if you want to support us on Patreon, patreon.com/melee stats. If you want to watch our episodes as they go live, twitch.tv/melee stats. We're putting our episodes on YouTube over the Melee Stats archive. That's where you can find them. And the Melee Stats channel on YouTube is going to have our long form content, our video essay documentaries. So you can check those out too while you're there. Twitter.com/Melee Stats Pod. We're going to be posting weekly. We're going to be posting daily tweets with showing results around the world, both online and off. And we're going to have links to our articles on meleestats.co, so you can go find them over there as well. That's going to be Monday Morning Marth and Wednesday Melee. And here's where I usually plug the Patreon, but I did it at the beginning because it was more pertinent. But I'll do this for you, Edwin. Patreon.com/melee stats. Double Patreon plug. Currently, Edwin, do you want to talk about the Patreon gambit that you're running right now?
Yeah, I both am so proud of myself, but also I'm a little
You're proud about yourself for everything.
well, I should be, because this is genius. Okay.
Yeah.
I forgot. Like, no one else would have thought. We wouldn't have thought of this. Ambi wouldn't have thought of this. It's just more proof that when it comes to the hustle part of Melee Stats,
I created the Discord.
I
made the Discord. You want the Discord to be Patreon exclusive.
Talk. You gotta let me finish. You have to, do you know what the game is, or do you want me to explain it?
The hustle. Talk about it.
Here it is. Okay, this is genius. All right. Cleach comes in the Discord. He talks about how he wishes that there was a 50-person SoCal PR. I tell him, you get me 10 people from SoCal that'll become annual patrons to Melee Stats. I'll do it. I'll make the 50-person SoCal.
You're speaking like you're in a Martin Scorsese movie right now.
Yeah. As far back as I can remember, I always wanted to. I always
wanted to make a 50-person SoCal PR.
A 50-person SoCal PR. Yeah, it's got like the flashbacks and everything. But
tell him, you get me 10 patrons, I get you a fucking 50-person.
Yeah, for some reason Layla's in the background. All these like 70s tracks. So in a day and a half, he got 10 patrons. So I'll be doing the 50-person SoCal PR. It'll be the greatest local ranking that's ever been done. Depending on if he has time to be involved, I would love my dear friend Wheat to be a panelist for the 50-person SoCal PR.
We will see.
Yeah, it'll be one of the most fun MS projects, I think, that we can do. It's basically like we've basically gotten commissioned $500 to make a 50-person PR, but you know, when you give a region something like this, they'll be patrons forever.
Oh my God.
So you know, maybe 10 people from SoCal, 10 people from Tri-State one day. Maybe I should have done 20.
I'm at like a profit margin meeting right now. I hate this. Edwin, you talked about time. You talked about if I have time to do this. You know what? We have no time for the show. We are running on 3 hours, and this was a beautiful 3 hours. But every week, our producer JD always talks about how late we go, and always gives us all these backhand things about how we can't run under 2 hours, and maybe he's right. So our average is being bumped up by doing this episode any further. So unfortunately, we will have to end this. Krudo, wonderful guest. Edwin, I love your energy, I guess. You've been very giddy this episode, which is nice. And I love everyone who's watching. I know that some people came in from raids, from Twitch. And if this is your first time watching, then I hope you enjoyed yourself. And we will not be on next week. We are a bi-weekly podcast, as we say, despite the fact that we run almost every week.
For
we
real.
are a bi-weekly podcast. We are actually taking next week off. There might be something interesting that will fill your podcast needs that week. We will see. But we will be back after Shine to discuss what's going to happen. I'm going to say Leffen wins. I think he goes last minute and wins. That's my prediction. But we will see you guys then. So enjoy your week off. And thanks for watching, everyone. Peace.
Peace.